Chapter 92. After resting for 2 days, Hyojin fully recovered his spirit. It can be seen that it is not an easy task to write the technique overnight. The body of the artificial tailed beast has now been shaped. The next problem in front of Hyojin is how to sneak out of the village quietly. If it is just sneaking out of the village, it is not difficult for Hyojin as an Umbu. But the key problem is that this trip will not be able to return in a day or 2. After all, Mai is thousands of miles away from the Roran ruins. It will take a lot of time to travel on the road, so Hyojin must leave a shadow clone at home to deal with any possible trouble. But more than half of the chakra on his body has been consumed to maintain the 3 generations of Kazekage puppet. The remaining chakra, if it is divided into 2 and leaves a shadow clone, then the chakra of his main body will not be enough to break the seal imposed on the dragon vein by 4 generations. Therefore, after thinking about it, Hyojin invited Jishui to his home. Jishui asked curiously, "Kuroto-san, why did you ask me to come here?" Hyojin nodded. "There is indeed one thing I want to ask you, but before that, I have another thing to ask you." "What is it?" "Didn't I mention to you before that during the 9 Tails Rebellion, the 9 Tails were controlled by the Sharingan?" After a pause, Hyojin thought about the wording and then asked, "Recently, have you found any strange people near the Uchiha clan land?" Shursui thought about it seriously, then shook his head. Hyojin asked, "Is there any abnormality?" Jishui smiled helplessly and said, "Except for those root ninjas who monitor our Uchiha clan, there are no suspicious people near the clan land. The Uchiha clan's land is on the edge of the village, and after the Kyuubi's rebellion, the estrangement between the Uchiha clan and the village has deepened, so ordinary villagers don't approach the Uchiha clan's land at all." Jishui suddenly stopped, and there was a thoughtful expression on her face. "What are you thinking of?" Jishui said with some uncertainty, "Speaking of which, something strange did happen in the clan." Hyojin asked curiously, "What strange thing?" "You should remember Shinichi, right?" While thinking, Shursui said, "Recently, he has been a little strange. Every day, he would run outside the village to cultivate." Hyojin rubbed his chin and said, "That's not strange, is it? He didn't have a deep impression of Uchiha Shinichi. After all, when they sparred, he cheated and defeated Uchiha Shinichi in an instant. The process was too fast, so naturally, it didn't leave any impression." Shursui said with a worried look on his face, "It's all because the root ninja who was monitoring him disappeared for no reason. In the past few days, Danzano-sama has been arguing with the patriarch about this matter. If it weren't for Sandame-sama, the consequences would have been, no wonder Danzo didn't send anyone to bother me these days." Before, Hyojin was a little puzzled as to why Danzo didn't send anyone to monitor him again. Hearing Jishui's words, he knew that something happened to the root ninjas again. However, since Danzo didn't do anything to Uchiha Shinichi, it meant that the disappearance of the root ninjas had nothing to do with Uchiha Shinichi, or in other words, there was no evidence to prove that Uchiha Shinichi did it. Hyojin couldn't analyze anything from Jishui's words, but he kept it in mind. After learning about the current situation of the Uchiha clan, Hyojin changed the topic and said, "Jishui, I have a favor to ask of you." Jishui hurriedly said, "Kuroto-san, you are too polite, please tell me what you need." Hyojin said with a serious face, "I need to go out of the village to do something, but I don't want others to know about it, so I hope you can help me create a shadow clone and leave it in my house to cover for me." The reason why Hyojin looked for Jishui is that only Jishui, who has the Manjikyu Sharingan, can perfectly transform her shadow clone into Hyojin's appearance. Even in front of the 3 generations, there is still a possibility of passing it off as the real one. After listening to Kuroto-san, Jishui was surprised. "Kuroto-san, what are you going to do?" Hyojin said, "Don't worry, what I'm going to do has nothing to do with the village, and it won't harm the interests of the village, it's just a personal matter." Hyojin knows what Jishui is worried about, so he has to explain it clearly. Because Jishui is the kind of my ninja who would rather commit suicide than defect after being betrayed by the village's elders, so if he doesn't explain it clearly to Jishui, even if the two have a good personal relationship, Jishui may not help him. After hesitating for a moment, Jishui finally nodded and agreed. If that's the case, then okay. Hyojin smiled. I'm afraid you have to work hard this time, because I won't be able to come back in a short time. Jishui asked carefully, Kuroto-san, how many days will it take for you to come back? After thinking for a while, Hyojin said, if everything goes well, I can come back in half a month, but if there is an accident then I can't say. Jishui suddenly stood up. What? Even for Jishui, it is not easy to maintain a shadow clone for half a month. What's more, in this half a month, it is very likely that the 3 generations will summon class 11, and Jishui really does not have the guts to use a shadow clone to deceive the 3 generations. Hyojin patted Jishui on the shoulder and sat him down, then said with a smile, You just promised me, you can't go back on your word now. Jishui said. But Hyojin interrupted Jishui's complaint and said, Don't worry, you have helped me this time. I will do my best to help you solve the conflict between Uchiha and the village. Jishui, who was a little moved, bowed his head and thought for a moment, then said, Kuroto-san, I can only hold on for 20 days at most. If it is longer, I can't guarantee. Hyojin secretly said, 20 days should be enough. Although the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets have been lost, Hyojin can still fly with the Tenseigan chakra mode, and the flying speed of the Tenseigan chakra mode is far better than the 3 generations of Kazekage puppet. After the 2 people reached an agreement, before leaving, Jishui left a shadow clone that is almost identical to Hyojin. With the cover of the shadow clone, Hyojin did not delay and directly sneaked out of the village. Before traveling, he had already investigated a remote and uninhabited route, so after sneaking out of the village, he immediately entered the Tenseigan chakra mode and flew towards the direction of the Land of Wind. Chapter 93. Country of Wind. The wind rolled up the yellow sand all over the sky, like a curtain, covering the sun hanging in the sky, making the noon sun look like the sunset at dusk. Walking on the winding sand dunes, the handsome face under the scorpion cloak was gloomy as if it could drip water. He patrolled the distance, and his eyebrows were slightly twisted. Did I miss him again? In the past 10 days, he searched the major towns, black markets, and even several oases on the trade route in the country of wind, but he found nothing. The trace of Hyojin seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Since he found out the identity of Hyojin, Sasori has been planning revenge. However, Hyojin is a member of the My Black Ops, which is directly under Naruto. His whereabouts are unpredictable. Either he doesn't leave the village, or once he leaves the village, he must be performing a secret mission, so it has been difficult for him to grasp the whereabouts of Hyojin. This time, he finally got a tip from a black market informant and thought that he would be able to wash away his shame. He never thought that after traveling thousands of miles from the country of water to the country of wind, he would still end up empty-handed. You're lucky. After a cold snort, Sasori wrapped his cloak tighter and walked in the direction of the country of rain in the country of fire, in a forest. Hyojin fell from the air and exited the Tenseigan chakra mode, holding a big tree and gasping for breath. Because he has to maintain the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets in the country of wind, there is only a small part of chakra left in his body, which leads to the Tenseigan chakra mode that can normally be maintained for 10 minutes, but now it can only be maintained for 4 or 5 minutes. Therefore, every time he activates the Tenseigan chakra mode, he has to stop for a while. Fortunately, the flying speed in the Tenseigan chakra mode is very fast, otherwise it may not be as fast as his normal speed. After chewing a military food pill, Hyojin spread the map on the ground and looked at it carefully. From the time he sneaked out of the village until now, 2 days had passed. According to the plan, he would be able to pass through the forest and enter the territory of the river country in one day. The main reason why he took so long was that the route he chose was too remote. The entire journey was either a dense forest that stretched as far as the eye could see, or an unbroken chain of mountains. There was also a section in the middle that was filled with cliffs and swamp. Choosing this secluded route was actually an act of helplessness. The main reason is that the Tenseigan chakra mode is too eye-catching. If he takes other routes, it will be easy to be discovered by the perception-type ninjas and Mai's sentry posts scattered throughout the Land of Fire. A few days later, Hyojin finally passed through the country of river and entered the country of wind, which was full of wind and sand. Instead of rushing, he perceived the position of the 3 generations of Kazekage puppet. A moment later, he opened his eyes and frowned. So far. After a while, he found that the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets that were following the Roran survivors were about 200 kilometers away from his position. Spreading out the map again, Kuroda drew a small point on the map with a pen. The location of this point is the location of the Roran survivors. Then, with this point as the center, his eyes swept around the map and finally fell on an oasis called Manto. Drawing a circle on this oasis with a pen, Kuroda thought, the place they are going should be here. This oasis called Manto is a relatively large oasis in the country of wind. Analyzing the trajectory of the Roran survivors' activities, this is likely to be their next foothold. Therefore, Hyojin doesn't have to chase the Roran survivors' convoy, he can just wait for them in the Manto oasis. After making up his mind, Kuroda immediately put away the map and entered the Tenseigan chakra mode again, flying in the direction of the Manto oasis at a high altitude close to the ground. 2 days later, Hyojin finally arrived at the Manto oasis and successfully saw the Roran survivors' convoy. He was not in a hurry to see Queen Roran, but first put the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets into the scroll and restored his peak state. Then he changed into a black cloak and put on a mask that he bought in the town of the country of wind before, and finally waited quietly for the night to come. A few hours later, the sun set and the moon slowly climbed up. At this time, smoke rose from the Roran survivors' convoy. They sat together in 2s and 3s, enjoying the rare leisure time of the day. Queen Roran did not sit around to eat with others, but held the baby alone, humming a song in the tent. Under the cover of the night, Hyojin quietly sneaked into Queen Roran's tent and whispered to Queen Roran, "What are you thinking about?" Queen Roran was shocked when she heard the voice. She quickly hugged the child in her arms and retreated to the corner while looking at Suijin with vigilance. "Who are you?" Hyojin said lightly, "Don't be too nervous, I'm here to do business with you." Queen Roran was a little confused. Business? In the convoy of the Roran survivors, except for some livestock, there was nothing valuable, so Queen Roran did not relax her vigilance because of Hyojin's words. At the same time, she did not call for help, because she knew very well that the person who can sneak into her tent quietly must be a ninja. And if the enemy is a ninja, the Roran survivors outside can't help at all. Her call for help not only won't save herself, but will also harm others. Hyojin nodded. "Yes, business." Queen Roran wanted to say something, but because of nervousness and panic, she coughed continuously, and only managed to stop after a long time. Seeing that Queen Roran coughed up blood, Hyojin quietly activated Byakugan and scanned Queen Roran. He was surprised to find that the chi in Queen Roran's body was stagnant, and her blood vessels were blocked, as if she was seriously ill. Hyojin frowned. "You are very ill." After panting for a while, Queen Roran said weakly, I know." Looking around Queen Roran's shabby tent, Hyojin said, "If you don't get treated in time, I'm afraid you won't live for more than a few years." Queen Roran did not continue this topic, but asked with a serious face, "Who are you? What do you want?" "I told you, I'm here to do business with you." Queen Roran shook her head. "I have nothing to sell." "No, you have a priceless treasure." After a short pause, Tenseigan continued with a smile. However, for you and your people, it is really useless. Chapter 94. Tenseigan didn't deny it. He said in a cold voice, "Yes, I want to do business with you, the dragon vein." "No, never." Queen Lulan refused without hesitation. Tenseigan didn't ask a stupid question like why, but said coldly, "You don't have the right to refuse." Queen Lulan heard the threat in Tenseigan's words, but she wasn't afraid. Instead, she straightened her chest and said, "You don't understand what the dragon vein's power means. It's not something you can control. Please put away your ambition." Tenseigan shook his head and said, "You're the one who doesn't understand the situation. I said you don't have the right to refuse." Queen Lulan turned her head to the side and became silent. She seemed to want to use this method to fight against Tenseigan. Listen to the voices outside. Your people are living a hard life in the desert to follow you. After a pause, Tenseigan's voice became colder. Do you really have the heart to watch them die one by one in front of you? Wearing a black robe, coupled with a scary grimace mask, Kuroto's appearance makes his words more convincing. Queen Lulan's face turned pale. She opened her mouth a few times but didn't know what to say. At this time, a survivor came to the queen's tent and shouted, "Your Highness, the soup is ready. Do you want me to bring it in?" Inside the tent, Tenseigan silently took out a kunai. Queen Lulan's heart jumped to her throat when she saw the cold kunai in Tenseigan's hand. She quickly said, "No need, I'm not hungry." The survivor said, "If you're hungry, you can call me at any time." Queen Lulan let out a long sigh of relief when she heard the survivor's footsteps leaving. Tenseigan asked, "Have you thought it through?" Queen Lulan compromised and said, "I can't break the seal. There's no point in forcing me. You don't have to worry about the seal. You just need to help me control the dragon vein." After a pause, Tenseigan continued, "After this is over, I'll pay you a large sum of money. It should be enough for you and your people to improve their lives. Compared to the useless dragon vein, money is what you need the most right now." Queen Lulan gently placed the baby on the bed and said, "I'll go with you, but you have to promise not to hurt my people." Queen Roran didn't believe that Tenseigan would give her the money after he stole the dragon vein. In her opinion, once Tenseigan stole the dragon vein, the first thing he would do would be to silence all witnesses. But she had no choice. In order to protect her daughter and her people, she decided to sacrifice herself. Plus, she knew she was already seriously ill and didn't have much time. Tenseigan didn't give her any guarantees. He left the caravan with her and disappeared into the night in a few leaps. The Manto Oasis wasn't far from the Lulan ruins. After a few hours of walking, Tenseigan and Queen Lulan arrived at the ruins. Returning to the ruins, Queen Lulan silently shed tears. This was where she was born and raised. It was also the hometown she'd abandoned. Tenseigan stood quietly at the side and didn't urge Queen Roran, who was in a state of sadness. To Tenseigan, the decline of ancient Lulan was inevitable. As the saying went, treasures bring trouble. Ancient Lulan didn't have the power to control the dragon vein. Naturally, it would attract all kinds of ambitious people. A moment later, the two arrived at the place where 4 generations had sealed the dragon vein. Queen Lulan pointed at the seal on the ground. The seal here was personally cast by 4 generations Naruto from my village. If you can't break the seal, I can't help you. Tenseigan didn't waste time. He slowly walked to the center of the seal and shouted, "Break!" Following Tenseigan's shout, the sealing technique of the dragon vein seal that Yondaime-sama placed on the dragon vein quickly disappeared, and the entire dragon vein seal shrank by a large margin. Queen Lulan was shocked. I can feel the dragon vein. Of course, I have removed the contract seal in the dragon vein, so the connection between you and the dragon vein should have been restored." After explaining indifferently, Kuroto asked, "What is the current situation of the dragon vein?" Queen Lulan sensed it and said, "It seems very irritable. Hyojin glanced at Queen Lulan. Irritable? Queen Lulan hurriedly advised, "You should give up. The power of the dragon vein can't be possessed by anyone. If you continue to remove the seal, I'm afraid something bad will happen." Hyojin smiled. "We've already come this far. Do you think I'll stop?" Queen Lulan shook her head and sighed. "You don't understand how terrifying the power of the dragon vein is." Hyojin continued to make seals coldly and shouted again, "Break!" This time, what he unlocked was the core of the Ryumyaku seal, and as the core part of the Ryumyaku seal was unlocked, the entire Ryumyaku seal was on the verge of collapse. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, all of a sudden, a strong gust of wind blew in the surroundings, emitting a series of whistling sounds. Looking at the crumbling dragon vein seal, Hyojin slightly raised the corner of his mouth. This was why he was confident that he could break the seal on the 4th generation sage. He didn't need to completely break the seal, he only needed to make a small hole in the seal, and the sealed dragon vein would struggle to break free from the shackles of the seal. At this time, he opened the scroll that sealed the body of the artificial tailed beast and pressed it lightly. Bang! After a burst of mist dissipated, a large mass of purple clay filled with exquisite sealing techniques appeared in front of Hyojin and Queen Lulan. Queen Lulan looked at the large mass of purple clay on the ground like a deflated balloon and asked, "What is this?" Hyojin, who was wearing the devil mask, activated the Tenseigan and said calmly, "You don't have to worry about what this is. When the dragon vein breaks free, find a way to help me control it, don't let it go berserk." Seeing that the seal of the 4 generations dragon Naruto was disintegrating little by little, Queen Lulan knew that no matter what she said at this moment, it would be useless, so she nodded. Hyojin fully activated the Tenseigan and stared at the dragon vein that was gradually breaking free. The existence of the dragon vein can be said to be an unsolved mystery in the shinobi world, because in the natural world, it is impossible to give birth to such a large chakra that is comparable to the tailed beast for no reason. In Hyojin's view, the only thing that can do this is either the ancestor of chakra, Otsutsuki Kagaya, who has been sealed for thousands of years, or her 2 sons, Otsutsuki Hamura and Otsutsuki Yuki, or some kind of demon from another world, or some unknown evil god entrenched in the shinobi world. Chapter 95. Under the mask, Hyojin's Tenseigan shone brightly, as if he wanted to see through everything about the dragon vein. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, amidst the whistling sound, the hurricane became stronger and stronger. The surrounding gravel was blown up by the hurricane, like a tornado, spinning rapidly around the altar. No matter what it hit, it would make a deafening noise. The ground began to tremble. Amidst the tremors, cracks appeared on the brick ground, and these cracks spread rapidly in all directions. In a moment, the entire ground was cracked into pieces. Queen Lulan staggered a few steps and finally fell to the ground. The hurricane blew so hard that she could barely open her eyes. She covered her face with her hands and said with difficulty, "The dragon vein is getting more and more irritable. I can't control it at all." Hyojin flashed in front of Queen Lulan and said calmly, "Don't panic, it's trying to break free from the seal, it's inevitable for it to be a little irritable." Queen Lulan, who was being protected by Hyojin, struggled to get up, looking surprised and doubtful. "Why aren't you afraid at all?" The scene in front of her was like the end of the world. In such an environment, Queen Lulan felt that no one in the world would be able to remain calm, but Hyojin, who was in front of her, had been very calm. This made her doubt Hyojin's identity. In her opinion, in the ninja world, perhaps only those ninjas who carried the name Kage could face the dragon vein so calmly. At this time, there were not many sealing techniques left for the 4 generations dragon vein seal. Roar! When the last few sealing techniques collapsed one by one, a soul-stirring dragon roar came from the abyss under the altar. Hyojin's eyes turned cold. It's about to break free. Queen Lulan, who was hiding behind Hyojin, tightly grabbed onto Hyojin's robe and said with difficulty under the whistling hurricane, I can already feel it." Clang! At the same time that the last sealing technique collapsed, the flying thunder god Kunai, which was the cardinal of the dragon vein seal, also flew out of the altar. An enormous amount of chakra surged out of the abyss and smashed the dome of the altar. It turned into a pillar of chakra that soared into the sky and lit up the entire night sky. Hyojin frowned. In the vision of his Tenseigan, the chakra of the dragon vein is not only vigorous, but it is also filled with an inexplicable power, which makes him feel a little afraid. At the same time, the commotion caused by the unsealing of the dragon vein had far exceeded his expectations. Looking at the dragon vein chakra pillar that pierced through the clouds, he knew that the sand crypsis would send someone to investigate soon, so he did not have much time left. Suppressing his guesses, Hyojin began the last step of the artificial-tailed beast plan. Soon, as he rapidly formed a series of hand seals, the purple clay shell gradually swelled up and grew larger. Open! After instilling the guided chakra into the purple clay shell, Hyojin shouted in a low voice. Accompanied by his low shout, the seal of the purple clay shell flashed with a brilliance. Then, the seal, which was covered with sealing spells, slowly opened up, like a big mouth that was opened wide. Seeing this scene, Queen Lulan was so shocked that she could not speak. At this time, Hyojin formed another hand seal, and then pressed one hand on the ground. In an instant, circles of sealing techniques spread out on the ground, like a spider web, covering the entire altar. This technique was the chakra seal, recorded in the artificial-tailed beast scroll. According to Orochi Maru's speculation, it was specially developed by the second Naruto for the artificial-tailed beast plan. After taking a deep breath, Hyojin activated the chakra seal and shouted to Queen Lulan behind him, "Now is the time, help me suppress the dragon vein." Queen Lulan looked up and saw the purple clay shell like a ball with its mouth wide open, pouncing on the dragon vein's chakra pillar. "It's devouring the dragon vein's chakra." Shocked, Queen Lulan fell into a dilemma. The dragon vein was the symbol of the ancient city of Lulan, a treasure passed down from generation to generation in the queen's family. She was not willing to watch the dragon vein be stolen. However, when she thought of the people who followed her, her heart was stirred again. The treasure of Lulan should belong to the people of Lulan. Gradually, Queen Lulan's expression became firm, and there was no more hesitation in her eyes. At this time, Hyojin was starting to feel tired. The amount of chakra in the dragon vein had completely exceeded his expectations. In just a few moments, the purple clay shell had expanded more than 10 times its original size. Its huge body even broke through the walls of the altar tower, causing the top half of the altar tower to collapse. Without the cover of the altar tower, the hurricane swept up a sandstorm that engulfed the entire Lulan ruins. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up!" Hyojin urged. Queen Lulan no longer hesitated and shouted, "In the name of the queen, I command thee to suppress thy power." With Queen Lulan's words, the hurricane slowed down significantly, and the chakra pillar also shrunk. The situation seemed to be under control. "It's working." Secretly delighted, Hyojin quickly asked, "Can you suppress the dragon vein further?" Queen Lulan shook her head. "This is all I can do." "Alright, keep a close eye on the dragon vein. Don't let anything happen to it again." After giving some instructions, Hyojin focused on activating the chakra seal. With Queen Lulan's reassurance, the dragon vein calmed down. This made it easier for Hyojin to steal the dragon vein's chakra. After all, it was much easier to subdue the gentle chakra than the violent chakra. Under Hyojin's control, the purple clay shell continued to devour the dragon vein's chakra. Its entire body expanded continuously, and gradually, it became so huge that it almost covered the sky. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 minutes had passed. The shell is reaching its limit. Looking at the purple clay shell that was about to expand to its limit, Hyojin's expression turned serious. Fortunately, the dragon vein's chakra pillar had become very weak. Even the hurricane around it had stopped. It seemed like the dragon vein was about to dry up. Queen Lolan's expression became melancholic. She could feel that the connection between her and the dragon vein was disappearing bit by bit. Whoosh! With the last gust of wind, the dragon vein's chakra pillar dissipated completely. Seeing that it was a success, Hyojin quickly formed a hand seal and shouted, "Seal!" Chapter 96. Looking at the purple clay shell that blotted out the sky, gradually shrinking under the shackles of the seals, the corners of Kuroto's mouth unconsciously rose slightly. But after a while, the smile on his face froze. This was because as the purple clay shell shrank, its appearance gradually changed. No one expected that after the dragon vein chakra was condensed to a certain extent, it actually manifested its true form, and its form turned out to be a dragon. But the purple clay shell was molded by Hyojin into a regular circle. As a result, the internal shape and the external shape had a violent conflict. Under the internal pressure of the dragon shape, the originally circular purple clay shell was forcibly squeezed out into the shape of a dragon, but because the purple clay shell was originally circular, so under the conflict, the artificial tailed beast created by Hyojin became a short and thick purple dragon. At first glance, it looks quite cute. After seeing the newly created artificial tailed beast, Queen Lulan looked at Hyojin with a strange expression. She didn't expect that Hyojin, who was dressed like a cold killer, would have such an aesthetic. Being stared at by Queen Lulan with such a strange expression, Hyojin couldn't help but explain coldly, "This is actually an accident." Queen Lulan turned her head to the side, looking at her expression. It seems that she didn't believe Hyojin's explanation at all. "Seal." Hyojin didn't continue to explain, but hurriedly sealed the artificial tailed beast into his body. This seal is only a temporary seal. He still can't transfer the artificial tailed beast's chakra. Only after completing the true Jinchuriki fusion seal can he transfer the artificial tailed beast's chakra. It's just that time is tight. The ninjas of the Sand Crypsis may arrive at any time, so the matter of the Jinchuriki fusion seal can be dealt with slowly after leaving this place. Finally, after scanning the surroundings with the Tenseigan and confirming that there were no traces left, Hyojin quickly left the ruins of Roran City with Queen Roran. A few hours later, when the first rays of dawn appeared on the horizon, Hyojin had already brought the Lulan Queen back to the vicinity of the Manto Oasis. Seeing that they were about to reach the Manto Oasis, Lulan Queen asked sternly, "You promised me that you would let my people go." Hyojin was taken aback. "I didn't say I was going to kill them." Upon hearing this, Lulan Queen's expression gradually softened. Then, she looked deeply in the direction of the Manto Oasis and mustered up her courage to say, Then do it." Hyojin crossed his arms in front of his chest, a puzzled look on his face. "What do you mean?" Lulan Queen asked carefully. "Didn't you want to kill me?" Hyojin was a little confused. "When did I say I was going to kill you?" Only now did he realize that Lulan Queen had never believed his words about spending money to buy the dragon vein. Instead, she scared herself half to death. Seeing that Hyojin really didn't seem to have the intention to kill her, Lulan Queen heaved a sigh of relief and asked doubtfully, "But I know your secret. Aren't you afraid that I will tell others?" "Do you know who I am?" Lulan Queen shook her head. "You don't even know who I am. Even if you tell others, it won't affect me." After a short pause, Kuroto said coldly, "Besides, you should know what will happen to you and your people if you say anything. What's more, you should know what will happen to you and your people." Lulan Queen quickly said, "I won't say anything." After pondering for a while, Hyojin said, "I'm afraid the Sand Crypsis won't let you go easily. You can't stay in the Wind Kingdom anymore." "What?" Lulan Queen was taken aback at first, but when she thought of the Sand Crypsis's plan for the dragon vein, she also understood that Hyojin's words are right, so she asked, "But where else can we go?" Hyojin rested his chin on his hand and thought about it. "When it comes to safety, Mai is a good choice, but the identity of the Lulan survivors is too sensitive. Once they hide in the 3 generations will immediately send people to investigate them. After all, the dragon vein was personally sealed by the 4 generations. Now that the seal has been lifted, even the dragon vein has been taken away, the 3 generations will definitely not ignore it. Except for Hyojin thought about it for a while. There is really no place that is safe. Suddenly, a thought flashed in his mind: the Land of Rain. As the headquarters of the Akatsuki, the Land of Rain may be a dangerous place for the ninjas of other villages, but for ordinary civilians, it is a rare and peaceful place. Because of Pain's strength, there are very few ninjas in the Land of Rain. Coupled with Pain's closed policy, it is very difficult for ninjas from other villages to sneak into the core cities of the Land of Rain, so once the Lulan survivors enter the Land of Rain, whether it is the Sand Crypsis or it will not be easy to catch them. After all, in the original story, the Land of Rain is a place where even one of the Sannin Jiraiya was defeated. And the most important point is that Pain, who has the Rinnegan and focuses on collecting the 9-tailed beasts, will not covet the dragon vein at all. Hyojin told Lulan Queen his thoughts, and once again said that he will pay Lulan Queen a sum of money to buy the dragon vein as agreed. Knowing that Hyojin really wants to pay, Lulan Queen, who is used to being poor, swallowed her saliva and asked, "How much do you want to pay?" Hyojin thought for a moment and immediately stretched out 5 fingers. 5 million ryo is all the money he has on him, of which 3 million ryo is the money he saved little by little, and the remaining 2 million ryo is the bounty he got from the 2 bounty ninjas who tried to assassinate him not long ago. Originally it was 3 million ryo, but 1 million ryo was used to hire Kusanagi shinobi. Staring at Hyojin's 5 fingers, Lulan Queen said to herself, 50,000 ryo? Well, it's actually quite a lot. Hyojin shook his head speechlessly. Lulan Queen asked tentatively, "Is it 500,000 ryo?" Hyojin joked, "It seems that you don't take the dragon vein too seriously." Lulan Queen couldn't contain her excitement and said in surprise, 5 million ryo? Hyojin nodded and said casually, "Although the money is not much, it is enough to improve the life of you and your people. If I give you more money, it will only harm you." Chapter 97. Since he has decided to pay the money, Hyojin can't stay out of the aftermath. Otherwise, if the Sand Crypsis intercepts the convoy and uses the lives of the survivors to threaten Queen Lulan, then it will be hard for Queen Lulan to keep her mouth shut. Although Queen Lulan doesn't know Hyojin's true identity, she has witnessed the whole process of the artificial tailed beast's birth, so even if she only leaks the information to the Sand Crypsis, it will still be a hidden danger to Hyojin. Thinking of this, Hyojin immediately made up his mind and said to Queen Lulan, "Time is precious, you should move now, I will deal with the Sand Crypsis." After noticing the abnormality of the dragon vein, according to common sense, Sand Village would definitely send an elite team to the ruins of Roran City to investigate the situation. This process will take at least half a day to 2 days. It depends on the Sand Crypsis's reaction speed and how much they value the dragon vein. After finding out that the dragon vein has been stolen, they will send the news back to the village, and the village will issue a new order to gather people to search for the Lulan survivors. This series of messages will take at least 1 to 2 days. In other words, the Lulan survivors will have about 2 to 3 days to catch up. As long as they can grasp this 2 to 3 days, it is very likely that the Lulan survivors will successfully escape from the Country of Wind and enter the Country of Rain controlled by the Akatsuki. After all, the Country of Rain and the Country of Wind are neighbors. As long as they leave the Country of Wind, they will be safe. Queen Lulan naturally also realized that time is precious. She nodded and asked, "You will escort us out of the Country of Wind, right?" Hyojin lightly said, "I can't give you any guarantee. If there is no accident, he will secretly cover the Roran survivors' convoy as they enter the Country of Rain, But if Yondaime Kazekage personally leads a team to chase after the Roran survivors' convoy, then he can only protect himself. Queen Lulan silently nodded. Although she was a little disappointed, she understood that the more it is like this, the more it means that Hyojin has no intention to deceive her. Although the truth was sometimes hard to accept, it was still better than a lie. Queen Lulan no longer hesitated. She nodded at Hyojin and ran towards the oasis in the distance. After running for a dozen meters, she stopped and turned to Hyojin. "I'm no longer the Lulan Queen. My name is Sala." After saying that, Sarah did not look back and ran all the way to the Lulan survivors' convoy. Hyojin, dressed in a black robe, stood quietly on the sand dune, watching her leave. Not long after, the caravan of Lulan survivors camped in Manto Oasis was ready to set off. Hyojin did not immediately follow the convoy. Instead, he shifted his gaze to the other side. Sand Crypsis has been arranging 2 ninjas to monitor the Lulan survivors' convoy. This point, Hyojin had already discovered when he was looking for the Lulan survivors' convoy with the Grass Ninja Squad. Therefore, in order to ensure that the Sand Crypsis will not find out the whereabouts of the Lulan survivors' convoy, he must first solve the 2 Sand Crypsis ninjas responsible for monitoring the Lulan survivors' convoy. Byakugan, open! After opening the Byakugan, Hyojin glanced around and finally found 2 very weak chakra reactions in one direction. Judging from Chakra's reaction, the 2 Sand Crypsis ninjas responsible for monitoring the Lulan survivors' convoy should be ordinary genin, so he was too lazy to go there in person. He directly took out the 3 generations Kazekage puppet and gave it an order to kill them. It didn't take long for the 3 generations Kazekage puppet to easily kill the 2 Sand Crypsis genin in the distance. After dealing with this small hidden danger, Hyojin put away the 3 generations Kazekage puppet while wrapping his robe tightly and following the Lulan survivors' convoy from a distance. With leisure, Hyojin pondered about the dragon vein. Regarding the origin of the dragon vein, he vaguely has an answer. This dragon vein is not a natural product of the shinobi world, or to be more precise, it is not entirely a natural product of the shinobi world. The core part of the dragon vein, that is, the dragon vein source, should be the same as Otsutsuki Kagaya, which came from the outside world. However, unlike the Otsutsuki clan that plunder energy, this dragon vein source did not come to the shinobi world intentionally. Its arrival is more like an accident, and when it came to the shinobi world, it should have been seriously injured. The degree of injury is so heavy that it had to establish a contract with the local nobles in order to obtain the worship of the local nobles. This is the reason why the dragon vein has a contract relationship with the Lulan Queen. After that, the dragon vein source began to dive into the ground, trying to recover itself by absorbing the power of the earth vein. However, in the process, the dragon vein source seemed to have some problems, or it was attacked, which caused its source to completely collapse. The trace of obsession it left behind, after thousands of years of nurturing, produced a new dragon vein origin, a brand new and ignorant dragon vein origin. This brand new dragon vein origin had forgotten everything in the past, so it stopped absorbing the energy of the earth veins and stayed in the underground of the ancient Lulan city. It would only occasionally respond to the calls of the Lulan Queen's bloodline. Because of this, the Lulan Queen was able to maintain this unequal contract relationship. Otherwise, with the size of the dragon vein, which is comparable to the chakra of the tailed beast, the ordinary people of the Lulan Queen would not have the ability to maintain a contract relationship with it. As urgent as the law, recalling the words of the Lulan Queen, Sala, when she comforted the dragon vein, Hyojin's thoughts suddenly scattered. The sentence pattern of, as urgent as the law, did not match the ninja world, so when Sala said it, Hyojin's first reaction was surprise, very surprise. And this sentence pattern was undoubtedly made when the first dragon vein source signed the contract with the ancestors of the Lulan Queen. So, from this sentence pattern, Hyojin could vaguely guess where the first dragon vein source came from. Collecting his scattered thoughts, Hyojin looked up at the sky and muttered to himself, "What is this world like?" Just as Hyojin was feeling emotional, the 4 generations of Kazekage in the Sand Crypsis received the news that the dragon vein was stolen. Staring at the information in his hand, the 4 generations of Kazekage's face turned ashen. He asked the 2 consulting elders beside him, "Could it be Mai?" Chiyo snorted coldly. "The seal of the 4 generations Naruto is not that easy to break. Who else could steal the dragon vein so quickly other than Mai?" Chapter 98. Outside the Mai village, Uchiha Shinichi took the lunchbox and ate it while mumbling, "Didn't I tell you earlier that you don't need to send me food? I have already prepared the military ration pills?" Kuroto asked. "Didn't I tell you a long time ago that you don't need to send me food?" The girl on the side smiled and said, "It's not good for the body to eat military food pills often." The girl was about 14 or 15 years old, with short hair, wearing a ninja outfit with the Uchiha clan emblem painted on it. She didn't look like an ordinary weak girl, but a serious ninja. Uchiha Shinichi, who was eating happily, didn't speak, just shook his head. After swallowing the rice ball in his mouth, he said, "It's not safe outside the village, don't come back in the future." The girl frowned and asked, "Shinichi, there is a training ground in the clan's land. Why do you have to go outside the village to train?" Uchiha Shinichi coldly snorted, "I don't want to train with them." The them, in Uchiha Shinichi's words, were the clansmen who laughed at him for losing to Hyojin. In the eyes of the clansmen, Uchiha Shinichi, who couldn't even block one move from Hyojin, had lost the face of the Uchiha clan, so they laughed at Uchiha Shinichi unscrupulously. The girl said angrily, "When I go back today, I'll go find the patriarch and let him teach them a lesson." Feeling that his self-esteem was violated, Uchiha Shinichi suddenly said angrily, "Kurumi, I don't need you to mind my business." The girl named Kurumi felt wronged. She grabbed the bowl and chopsticks in Uchiha Shinichi's hand and said angrily, "I don't need you to mind my business." In the distance, the masked man sat on a branch, looking at Uchiha Shinichi and Uchiha Kurumi from afar. At this time, Zetsu's body rose from the trunk and said, "I've prepared everything you arranged." The masked man said coldly, "Then let's start." Zetsu also looked at Uchiha Shinichi and asked with a strange expression, "Will this method really work?" The masked man glanced at Zetsu coldly. "What do you think?" Zetsu smiled awkwardly, "Maybe." On Uchiha Shinichi's side, after putting the bowl and chopsticks into the basket, Uchiha Kurumi ignored Shinichi and walked towards the village with the basket in her hand. Shinichi Uchiha opened his mouth and wanted to say, "Be careful on the road," but he couldn't bring himself to do it, so he lowered his head and sighed. After leaving the training ground that Uchiha Shinichi had opened, Kurumi Uchiha sulked and thought about how to complain to the clan leader, so that the clan leader could teach those who bullied Uchiha Shinichi a lesson. At this time, Kurumi Uchiha suddenly stopped and the bamboo basket in her hand fell to the ground, making a soft sound. As a ninja of the Uchiha clan, Kurumi Uchiha naturally understood that she was attacked. Thinking that Uchiha Shinichi was nearby, she quickly wanted to call for help, but when she opened her mouth, she realized that no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't make a sound. How could this be? Kurumi Uchiha suddenly panicked. At this moment, she felt that something had attached itself to her body and was slowly controlling her body. In the bushes, the root ninja, who was in charge of monitoring Uchiha Shinichi, also noticed the abnormality of Kurumi Uchiha. He frowned slightly and thought to himself, "What's wrong with her?" Before the root ninja could observe carefully, the frozen Kurumi Uchiha suddenly moved, and she flew in his direction. Because of the mysterious disappearance of his predecessor, the root ninja who took over monitoring Uchiha Shinichi had to be vigilant at all times to avoid repeating the same mistake, so when Kurumi Uchiha rushed towards him, he didn't panic at all. He directly took out his kunai and faced her while shouting, "Do you want to betray my?" Kurumi Uchiha's eyes were full of panic, but her movements were clean and neat. In just an instant, she shot more than a dozen shurikens at the root ninja. Clang clang clang, after using his kunai to block the shurikens shot by Kurumi Uchiha, the root ninja was even more confused. As a shinobi of the root, Kuroto has heard of all kinds of strange ninjutsu, so when he noticed the panic in Uchiha Kurumi's eyes, he immediately realized that this matter isn't as simple as it seems. So he asked, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" Kurumi Uchiha's tears flowed out, but she couldn't speak, and her body was not under her control, so she couldn't explain at all. She could only attack the root ninja fiercely like a puppet. The root ninja weighed the situation and decided to retreat for the time being. After all, the scene in front of him was too strange, and he didn't know how to deal with it, and he suspected that there was an enemy hidden in the dark controlling everything. But just as he was about to retreat, he suddenly couldn't move. At the moment when he lost control of his body, the root ninja's heart was filled with a storm. At this time, Kurumi Uchiha had already rushed over, and her body directly hit the kunai in the root ninja's hand. Puff! As the kunai pierced into the chest, Kurumi Uchiha's blood suddenly sprayed out. Hearing the movement, Shinichi Uchiha also rushed over at this time. When he saw the scene in front of him, his face turned red and he roared angrily, "What are you doing?" After stabbing Kurumi Uchiha, the root ninja found that he had regained control of his body, and his heart trembled, knowing that he had fallen into a trap, so he didn't explain to the angry Uchiha Shinichi and directly ran towards the village. Shinichi Uchiha stumbled to the front of Kurumi Uchiha, hugged her, and shouted, "Kurumi, are you okay?" Kurumi Uchiha, who was dying, mustered the last of her strength and reached out to the cheek of Shinichi Uchiha and said weakly, "Shinichi, be careful." Before he could finish his words, Uchiha Kurumi's hand fell to the ground. "No, no, no." Shinichi Uchiha tightly covered the wound of Kurumi Uchiha while shouting at the top of his voice. He had completely lost his mind, and he didn't even notice that the 3 Magatama on his Sharingan were spinning rapidly in the distance. Zetsu asked curiously, "How do you know that he has the potential? His strength is not the top in the Uchiha clan, is it?" The masked man thought for a long time and said, "It has nothing to do with strength. The purer the mind of the Uchiha, the more potential he has to open his eyes, whether it is pure good or pure evil." As he said that, the masked man fell into memory. He didn't know whether he should be pure good or pure evil. Chapter 99. After a sorrowful roar, the rotation speed of the 3 Tomo in Shinichi Uchiha's Sharingan gradually slowed down, and tears poured down from his eyes and fell on the corpse of Kurumi Uchiha. Zetsu, who was hiding in the distance, said with some regret, "It's a pity that it didn't work." The masked man was not disappointed. "Don't worry." Zetsu looked at the masked man in despair. "But your plan has failed. This is just the beginning." With a chuckle, the masked man said slowly, "Do you think Shinichi Uchiha will let go of the root ninja?" Zetsu shook his head. "This is an obvious fact. No matter who encounters such a thing, they won't let it go, not to mention Uchiha Shinichi, who has a straightforward temperament and doesn't mince his words." The masked man smiled again and said, "Then do you think Danzo will hand over the root ninja?" Zetsu was taken aback. With Danzo's strength in Konoha, not to mention that the root shinobi is not responsible for this matter, even if the root shinobi was really the one who killed the person, Danzo will never bow his head to the Uchiha clan. "No wonder you want me to let go of the root ninja," Zetsu asked worriedly. "But in this way, will Danzo be aware of us?" The masked man said indifferently, "They have been aware of us for a long time." In the Nine Tails Rebellion, the masked man fought with the 4 generations Naruto, leaving many traces of the fight, so the village leaders have long been aware that someone is manipulating the chaos behind the scenes. It's just that the village leaders can't confirm whether the person behind the scenes is from outside the village or is hidden within the Uchiha clan. As for Danzo, he has long made no secret of his malice towards the Uchiha clan, so most of the time he just pretends to be confused and deliberately finds excuses to target the Uchiha clan. Zetsu asked again, "Then what are we going to do next?" "Let's wait and watch the show." With a smile, the masked man said mockingly, "Uchiha Shinichi won't be able to take revenge, and the Uchiha clan won't be able to help him either." Ju asked, "Then what will he do?" "He'll hate Danzo. She hated hate Uchiha. I hate everything." The masked man spoke with certainty, as if he had already predicted the future. With despair in his eyes, Shinichi Uchiha, who was walking towards the village with Kurumi's body in his arms, said casually, "But what if he can't open the Manjikyu Sharingan? I think we've wasted too much time here." The masked man also looked at the back of Uchiha and Shinichi as they left and mumbled, "A useful chess piece. It's worth the effort." Wind Nation. In the endless desert, Hyojin walked while silently counting the distance. It has been 10 days since he sneaked out of the village. He estimates that in 3 days he will be able to successfully escort the Roran survivors to the territory of the Land of Rain, and then the remaining 7 days should be enough for him to return to the village. Fortunately, the agreed time with Jishui is 20 days. Just as he was rejoicing, the cry of an eagle suddenly sounded in the distance. Following the sound, Kuroda saw an eagle hovering in the sky in the distance. Looking at its flight trajectory, it seems to be searching for something. Obviously, the eagle in the sky is not an ordinary bird, but a trained ninja beast. With a smile, Hyojin said, as expected of one of the 5 great ninja villages, Sand Crypsis, their reaction speed is really not slow, they found this place so quickly. After laughing, Kuroda didn't do anything extra, but stood quietly in the same place, as if waiting for someone. After a while, a figure fell in front of Hyojin, knelt on one knee and said in a cold and mechanical tone, "Master, there is a 4-man team of Sand Crypsis behind us." This figure is none other than the Kazekage puppet of 3 generations. In the past few days, Kuroda took advantage of the time he had to protect the Roran survivors' convoy to redo the Jinchuriki fusion ceremony on the artificial tailed beast that was temporarily sealed inside his body, thus becoming a true Jinchuriki of the dragon bloodline. And after becoming Ryumyaku's Jinchuriki, he deeply realized that there is a big difference between Ryumyaku's chakra and ordinary chakra. First of all, Ryumyaku's chakra contains a large proportion of earth vein energy, that is, nature energy, so the quality of its chakra is obviously higher than the chakra in the body of an ordinary ninja. This caused the Tenseigan chakra in Hyojin's body to be unable to instantly fuse with Ryumyaku's chakra of the same quality. Therefore, whenever Hyojin wants to mobilize Ryumyaku's chakra, he needs to spend some time to transform Ryumyaku's chakra into Tenseigan chakra bit by bit in his body, just like Naruto absorbs nature energy. However, it is precisely because the quality of Ryumyaku's chakra is very high, so the amount of Tenseigan chakra obtained after the transformation is very large. Secondly, Hyojin was surprised to find that perhaps because the original intention of Ryumyaku's original source is to absorb the energy of the earth vein to restore itself, so in thousands of years of gestation, Ryumyaku's chakra has a natural self-healing attribute. Ordinary wounds, even without medical ninjutsu, or even without bandaging, can heal at a speed several times faster than normal. Finally, because the second-generation Ryumyaku's original source is essentially a newborn, ignorant, and much smaller than a tailed beast, it is very easy to tame, so Hyojin can easily control it, but the amount of Ryumyaku's chakra is too large, so he has to be careful every time he mobilizes Ryumyaku's chakra. After obtaining a huge amount of Tenseigan chakra, the first thing Hyojin did was to pour a huge amount of Tenseigan chakra into the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets around him. Originally, He just wanted to try to improve the spirituality of the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets, so that they have a little consciousness. But he never thought that after pouring a large amount of Tenseigan chakra into the puppets, the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets not only have a certain degree of autonomous consciousness, but they can even speak. Hyojin has studied the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets for a long time, and he knows that there is no vocal device in its throat at all, so Hyojin is also very surprised that it can speak. But when he opened the Tenseigan and carefully observed for a while, he found that the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets simulated part of the vocal organ by using chakra, so although it can speak, its tone is very cold and mechanical. That feeling is like a ghost that has come back to life and is speaking. Chapter 100. A 4-man team, huh? After knowing that behind him was a 4-man team from the Sand Crypsis, Hyojin rubbed his chin, pondered for a while, and finally decided to deal with this trouble personally. After all, the convoy of the Roran survivors was still 2 or 3 days away from the country of rain. If the trail of the convoy was exposed now, the subsequent troubles would be endless. One must know that the speed of the ninjas was far beyond the speed of the convoy. After making up his mind, Hyojin ordered the 3 generations Kazekage puppets, "You go follow the convoy." Yes. The 3 generations Kazekage puppets responded, and then disappeared in front of Hyojin in a flash. Hyojin curled his lips. This guy, is it necessary to use body flicker technique? Suddenly, he felt that it was necessary to set a rule with the 3 generations Kazekage puppets. Being so extravagant and wasteful, even if he was the Ryumai's Jinchuriki, he also faintly felt distressed. What's more, transforming the Ryumai chakra into the Tenseigan chakra was not an easy task. He himself had worked hard and hadn't used the chakra much, and the 3 generations Kazekage puppets were not polite at all. After activating the Byakugan to confirm the location of the 4-man Sand Crypsis team, Hyojin's figure flashed and rushed over. After a few jumps, Hyojin came to the front of the 4-man Sand Crypsis team. The Sand Crypsis ninjas saw Hyojin dressed in a black robe and wearing a grimace mask on his face, almost writing the word "suspicious" on his face, so they didn't talk nonsense and spread out to surround Hyojin while sending a signal to the distance. Hyojin did not stop them and let the other side send the signal for help. The Sand Crypsis's search was obviously a comprehensive search of different areas. If he killed the 4 members of the Sand Crypsis team here, it would be telling the Sand Crypsis that there was a problem in this direction. Therefore, what he really wanted to do was not to annihilate a team of 4 from the Sand Crypsis, but to disrupt the Sand Crypsis's search plan and confuse the Sand Crypsis's search direction. After a while, another 2 teams of 4 from the Sand Crypsis arrived. The Sand Jonin who was leading the team asked sternly while remaining vigilant, "Who are you? Why are you here?" Seeing that the surrounding Sand Crypsis ninjas have been attracted, Hyojin no longer delayed and directly ran over several sand dunes in the blink of an eye. Seeing that Hyojin was so suspicious, the Sand Crypsis ninjas will naturally not let him go. Therefore, the scene became that Hyojin was running in the front, and a large group of Sand Crypsis ninjas were chasing behind him, and the number of Sand Crypsis ninjas behind him increased. Looking back at the Sand Crypsis ninjas behind him, Hyojin secretly smiled. Hyojin's intention is very obvious. He wants to mobilize the other party's search personnel. He believes that there must be people among the Sand Crypsis ninjas behind him who are aware of this. It's just that the appearance of such a suspicious person, even if the Sand Crypsis ninjas are aware of his true purpose, it is impossible for them to leave him alone. In the next few hours, Hyojin and the Sand Crypsis ninjas launched a high-speed chase in the desert. In the end, the Sand Crypsis ninjas behind him had nearly 40 to 50 people. If a 4-person squad is responsible for an area, I should have mobilized at least 10 search personnel in the area. While galloping, Kuroda looked back and observed the pursuers behind him while quickly analyzing the situation. If the search personnel in the 10 areas are all in a mess, then it will take a lot of time for the Sand Crypsis ninjas to sort out which area and which direction is the problem. Seeing that his goal has been achieved, Hyojin no longer entangled with these Sand Crypsis ninjas. He immediately used the body flicker technique and rain wheel pull. His figure turned into a shadow and quickly disappeared in the sandstorm. Where is he? How did he disappear in the blink of an eye? I saw him suddenly accelerate and fly away. What nonsense are you talking about? How could he fly? The Sand Crypsis ninjas who lost their target suddenly fell into a mess. These Sand Crypsis ninjas who are responsible for the search are not strong. The leader is just an ordinary jonin, and the rest are mostly chunin and genin. It is more than enough for them to pursue the convoy of Roran survivors, but it is impossible to catch Hyojin. Hyojin, who was wantonly venting chakra, was running alone in the desert. In the past, when he used chakra, he needed to be calculative and save as much as possible. But this time, it is the first time he used chakra so unscrupulously. As a result, with the combination of body flicker technique and rain wheel pull, he was as fast as flying. In the blink of an eye, he got rid of the Sand Crypsis ninjas behind him. After a while, he stopped and gasped for breath. Although this squandering was very enjoyable, it also consumed a lot of Ryumyaku chakra, and because of the continuous use of the body flicker technique, Kuroda's body couldn't bear it anymore. Oh, it seems that I can't be so reckless. After catching his breath, he perceived the position of the 3 generations Kazekage puppets, and then took a big circle and rushed in the direction of the convoy of Roran survivors. 2 days passed by quickly. After these days of rushing at full speed, the convoy of Roran survivors successfully walked out of the desert of the Land of Wind and entered the Gobi Desert, which is relatively easy to walk on. Hyojin, who fell behind the convoy of Roran survivors, spread the map on the ground and studied it carefully. He thought to himself, as long as they pass through this Gobi Desert and enter the canyon, they will be considered to have crossed into the territory of the Land of Rain. After escorting the convoy of Roran survivors into the Land of Rain, Hyojin will no longer care about it. At this point, he has already done his best. As for how Sarah and the Roran survivors live in the Land of Rain, he has neither the ability nor the interest to intervene. At this time, the 3 generations Kazekage puppets in charge of the investigation came back and reported, "The people of the Sand Crypsis have caught up again." Hyojin looked back and glanced coldly. His previous plan to disrupt the entire search operation of the Sand Crypsis was successful, but as time passed, the higher-ups of the Sand Crypsis who collected enough information soon realized that the convoy of Roran survivors wanted to escape into the Land of Rain, so the pursuers of the Sand Crypsis also had a direction and rushed in this direction. Looking at the approaching Sand Crypsis ninjas, Hyojin said calmly, "Since you are in a hurry to die, then I have to fulfill your wish." Chapter 101. Whoosh, a gust of wind blew, rolling up the yellow sand in the sky, making the sky flicker. Standing alone on the sand dune, Hyojin glanced coldly at the 8 Sand Crypsis ninjas who were approaching in the distance, then slowly raised his hands and calmly formed a seal. Clatter, in an instant, the sky-blue Tenseigan chakra wrapped his body. After entering the Tenseigan chakra mode, Kuroda's entire temperament has changed a little. Like a god, he slowly floated in the air. At this time, Hyojin looked indifferent. While feeling the consumption of his own chakra, he concentrated on condensing the truth-seeking balls that could only be condensed with the Tenseigan chakra mode. 1, 2, 3. After condensing the third, Hyojin frowned slightly. He found that maintaining 3 truth-seeking balls made his body feel a little tired. If he continues to condense, the consumption of the Tenseigan chakra will increase rapidly. Why is this happening? Hyojin's eyes were cold, showing a thoughtful expression. The truth-seeking ball is the product of the convergence of the 7 chakra attributes of yang release, yin release, and the 5 elements. Therefore, in theory, only the strong person who has mastered the changes of these 7 chakra attributes can condense and use the truth-seeking ball. Therefore, there are only a few strong people in the ninja world who can use the truth-seeking ball. Apart from Otsutsuki Kagaya, Otsutsuki Yuki, and Otsutsuki Himura, the only people who can use the truth-seeking ball in Hyojin's impression are Uchiha Obsidian and Uchiha Madara, as well as Naruto, who has mastered the Sage of Six Paths mode, and Otsutsuki Samurai, who also has the Tenseigan. It seems that only Otsutsuki Kagaya, Otsutsuki Yuki, and Otsutsuki Himura can use the truth-seeking ball by themselves. As for Uchiha Obsidian, Uchiha Madara, Naruto, and Tonahito, they need to rely on other external forces to supplement their chakra attribute. In other words, they all need to be in a special state to have the ability to use the truth-seeking ball. Thinking of this, Kuroda had an epiphany. Only by strengthening his control of the 7 chakra attributes can he control the truth-seeking ball more easily. Otherwise, he can only rely on the Tenseigan chakra mode to condense the truth-seeking ball. Unlike the talented Otsutsuki Samurai, Hyojin's talent is too mediocre, so it is more difficult for him to condense and maintain the truth-seeking ball than of others. After vaguely figuring out the reason, Hyojin did not stop. In this battle, in addition to dealing with the ninjas of the Sand Crypsis, he also needed to test his own strength. In particular, he needed to understand the upper limit of his combat power after becoming the Ryumyaku's Jinchuriki. Therefore, he continued to condense the truth-seeking ball. The fifth soon 2 more truth-seeking balls were condensed by Hyojin and floated beside him. Is this the limit? At this point, he felt that his body had reached its limit. If he continued to condense the truth-seeking ball, it was very likely that his body would be overwhelmed and he would be forced to exit the Tenseigan chakra mode. However, he was still very satisfied with this result. After all, with his own chakra, maintaining 1 truth-seeking ball was the limit. Now that he could condense 5 truth-seeking balls at once, it was difficult to accurately describe such an improvement as rapid. At this time, the 8 ninjas of the Sand Crypsis finally arrived in front of Hyojin. The 8 ninjas of the Sand Crypsis seemed to be organized into 2 teams of 4, and from the reaction of the chakra on them, the 2 leading ninjas were Jonin level, and the rest were also Chunin level. Looking at Hyojin floating in the air with 5 truth-seeking balls floating around him, the ninjas of the Sand Crypsis felt a sense of dread. Flying. This was a relatively rare ability in the ninja world. All ninjas who had the ability to fly were often the elites of the major ninja villages, and none of them were to be trifled with. The leading Jonin of the Sand Crypsis asked with full vigilance, "Did you steal the Ryumyaku?" Hyojin did not answer, but slowly floated towards the ninjas of the Sand Crypsis. These ninjas of the Sand Crypsis did not know what the Tenseigan chakra mode was, and they did not know what the truth-seeking ball was, but this did not stop them from instinctively feeling fear. Therefore, the leading Jonin of the Sand Crypsis roared with a slightly distorted tone, "Do it!" Before his voice died away, he quickly formed a hand seal and shouted, "Fire release! Fire tiger flame explosion!" At the same time, the 3 Chunin who had a tacit understanding with him shouted in unison, "Wind release! Great wind pressure!" Boom! The fire release and wind release ninjutsu merged together and made a loud noise. The fire borrowed the momentum of the wind, and a huge fire tiger seemed to be walking on the wind, and with a rapid speed, it pounced towards Hyojin who was in the air. Seeing this, Hyojin only raised his right hand gently. In an instant, the truth-seeking ball floating beside him turned into a thin layer of black hemispherical shield, blocking in front of him. Boom! Borrowing the momentum of the wind, the fire tiger pounced on the black shield formed by the truth-seeking ball, causing a sky full of flames. He got hit. It's a success. He's dead meat. Seeing that Hyojin had taken the combined ninjutsu of fire release and wind release, the ninjas of the Sand Crypsis all showed a look of excitement and anticipation. The combined ninjutsu performed by a Jonin and 3 Chunin who had a tacit understanding with each other at the same time was no small matter. Even a Kage-level character would not dare to take it head-on. Therefore, in their opinion, the thin layer of black shield in front of Hyojin would definitely not be able to block their combined ninjutsu. Whoosh, the strong wind blew away the smoke and dust, and Hyojin's figure was revealed. The thin layer of black shield in front of him was not damaged in the slightest, and even its shape did not change at all. The powerful combination ninjutsu just now was like a firework to attract attention. How is this possible? The Jonin of the Sand Crypsis who used fire release was shocked. Although his intuition told him that the truth-seeking ball was unusual, he did not expect that his fire release ninjutsu would not be able to cause any damage to it. The other Jonin of the Sand Crypsis team quickly shouted, "Nobu, there's something strange about those black balls." The Jonin of the Sand Crypsis named Nobu, who had just used fire release, suppressed the shock in his heart, restored the calmness of a Jonin, and said, "Zisuk, this guy is not simple, let's work together." The other Jonin of the Sand Crypsis named Nobu nodded, then bit the tip of his finger, and gently pressed on the sand, spirit summoning technique. Bang! Chapter 102. Hyojin looked down. In his vision of the Tenseigan, there was a very large sandworm hidden in the sand dune. And this sandworm is not only huge, but it also has a very good chakras amount. Among the ninja beasts that Hyojin has seen, it is absolutely outstanding. After a light sound, Hyojin did not do anything extra. Since he used the Tenseigan chakra mode, he did not intend to let these Sand Crypsis ninjas go, but this does not prevent him from using these Sand Crypsis ninjas as practice. Especially in the use of the truth-seeking ball, he still needs to familiarize himself with it. After all, counting from the time he mastered the Tenseigan chakra mode, there were only a few opportunities for him to really touch the truth-seeking ball, and it was either because he was in a crisis and didn't have the time to carefully comprehend it, or because his chakra wasn't enough to fully activate it. Like now, it is the first time that he has both chakra and time, so he doesn't want to waste it easily, otherwise, when he returns to the village, it will not be easy to find such an opportunity again. On the side of the Sand Crypsis ninjas, Aura glanced at several companions around him, then looked at Nosuke and nodded. After exchanging a few glances, the 8 sand ninjas communicated with each other about the next step of their strategy. Wind release, tornado. The 2 Sand Crypsis Chunin took the lead to attack. One on the left and one on the right. At the same time, they used the wind release ninjutsu, and the giant sandworm hidden under the sand dune also spat out a sand column at the right time. The 2 wind release ninjutsu rolled up the yellow sand in the sand column, and in an instant, the surroundings were stirred up, as if suddenly fell into the night. When Hyojin saw this, he smiled slightly. "You want to deprive me of my vision through the sandstorm?" At this time, Sand Crypsis Jonin Aura took out 2 scrolls from the ninja bag, one in each hand, and shook both scrolls at the same time. Bang! After a burst of smoke, 2 puppets appeared in front of him. One of the puppets looked very similar to a python. It was made up of joints, and each joint seemed to be able to move. It looked very strange. As for the other puppet, it was like a huge umbrella. When it was opened, it had a diameter of more than 2 meters. The sandstorm doesn't hinder Hyojin's Tenseigan. With a glance, he discovered that the joints of the python puppet were filled with layers of detonation runes, and the belly of the umbrella-shaped puppet was densely packed with thousands of books. Moreover, he didn't need to guess to know that these thousands of books must have been soaked in poison. After summoning the 2 puppets, Depu's expression turned ferocious as he shouted, "Bastards, how dare you look down on us? Die!" Oshiro's anger was like a horn to attack. The first was the python puppet. It suddenly leapt up, and the mechanism under its abdomen spewed out a wave of air. The entire puppet shot out like an arrow towards Hyojin, who was in mid-air. At the same time, the umbrella-shaped puppet launched countless thousands of books towards Hyojin. Hyojin waved his hands indifferently, and the 5 truth-seeking balls floating around him instantly turned into a black ball, protecting him from all directions. Clang, 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 countless thousands of books hit the wall of the black ball formed by the truth-seeking balls, making a burst of metal impact sound. However, the wall of the black ball still didn't change at all, and the thousands of books forged from fine steel seemed to have suddenly become wooden, easily broken and broken. At this time, the python puppet that flew over wrapped around the black ball, and then the sound of detonation runes sounded. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions shook the surrounding sand, and the huge shock wave forced all the ninjas of the sand crypsis to cover their cheeks and fly back. Depu gritted his teeth and said, "There are 10,000 detonation runes hidden in my exploding python. He is dead." Another jonin of the sand crypsis, Nosuk, sensed it and suddenly exclaimed, "Something's wrong." "What's wrong?" The group of sand crypsis ninjas all looked at Nosuk. Nosuk shook his head and said, "The sandworm told me that the chakra reaction has not disappeared. How is that possible? Who can survive such an explosion? Even Lord Kazakage can't block this attack unscathed." The Chunin ninjas of Sand Village were all talking at the same time. Depu frowned and asked, "Nosuk, could it be that the sandworm made a mistake?" Looking at the sky full of smoke and dust not far away, Nosuk's expression became more and more serious. He said in a deep voice, "There is no mistake. The sandworm told me that it is very afraid." Depu was stunned when he heard that. That devil incarnate knows fear? In the desert, the giant sandworm has almost no natural enemies. Any bird or beast is within their hunting range, so when he heard that the giant sandworm is afraid, he felt ridiculous. The smoke and dust of the explosion gradually dissipated, and Hyojin's figure appeared again. Seeing that Hyojin is still unscathed, the group of sand crypsis ninjas looked at each other. In their minds, such a monster should not exist in this world. Hyojin ignored the group of sand crypsis ninjas and silently felt the changes of the truth-seeking ball just now. Being hit by 10,000 detonation runes is not a good feeling. If it was someone else, even if it was the Kage of the major shinobi villages, they would be seriously injured if not dead. However, for Hyojin who has the truth-seeking ball, it is not a big problem. It just consumed a lot of his chakra reserves in an instant. After a moment, Hyojin asked coldly, "Is this all you can do?" Having consumed a lot of chakra, he put away the thought of continuing to practice. After all, this is the Wind Nation, and a ninja should be cautious. Sand Crypsis Ninja Depu wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said, "This monster is not something we can deal with. Retreat." With Depu's order, the already timid Sand Crypsis ninjas immediately scattered in all directions. Hyojin smiled, then raised his right hand and gently clenched it into a fist. In an instant, the 8 fleeing Sand Crypsis ninjas were involuntarily pulled back to where they were. Even the battle-hardened Jonin Nobu of the Sand Village couldn't help but tremble at this moment. "Just now, you seem to have called me a bastard?" After a pause, Hyojin said lightly, "Then I will turn you into a real bastard." After saying that, Hyojin pointed at Depu. A truth-seeking ball flew out and shot at Depu. Seeing this, Depu quickly took out 2 kunai and tried to block the truth-seeking ball. Bang! Chapter 103. Noboru. Seeing that his companion was crushed by the truth-seeking ball, Nosuk of the Sand Crypsis was filled with grief and indignation. The other Chunin of the Sand Crypsis were also frightened. They seemed to have lost their will to fight, and their eyes were filled with fear as they looked at the truth-seeking ball. It was really hard for them to imagine that such a seemingly ordinary black ball could have such power. Hyojin waved his hand slowly and took back the truth-seeking ball. The expression on his face was still calm. Using kunai to block the truth-seeking ball, this kind of behavior is originally courting death. So the death of the Sand Crypsis Jonin was not surprising to Hyojin at all, it was completely reasonable. However, there was a problem with this attack. A completely frightened Sand Crypsis Jonin, after Hyojin used the truth-seeking ball to attack, actually had the time to take out the kunai and make a complete blocking action. What does this mean? This means that the attack speed of the truth-seeking ball is not fast, at least, it is far from what Hyojin expected. The truth-seeking ball is invincible, and it doesn't have the characteristic of being untouchable by the power of the Sixth Path, which indeed makes it extremely powerful, but if it can't accurately hit the target, then its power is meaningless. After all, there are many powerful techniques in the shinobi world. For example, the 3 generations Tsuchikage Dust Release, Mai's Corpse Demon Seal, Manjikyu Sharingan Samaterasu, and so on. Once hit, the target will either die or be severely injured. The weaker techniques, such as Sasori's Poison, Kakashi's Rachel, and so on, are also powerful techniques that can end the battle as long as they hit the target. It should be because I don't have enough control. Hyojin feels that the speed of the truth-seeking ball should be able to be improved, and the reason why the attack speed of the truth-seeking ball is relatively slow may be related to his ability to control the truth-seeking ball. At this time, the only remaining Sand Crypsis Jonin, Nosuke, shouted to the 6 Sand Crypsis Chunin around him. "I will hold him, you guys split up and run, be sure to report the situation back to the village." The 6 Sand Crypsis Chunin were already scared out of their wits, and they knew that they wouldn't be of much help even if they stayed, so they fled in all directions. Hyojin had already consumed a lot of chakra at this time, so he didn't want to continue to entangle with them. He directly flew towards the fleeing Chunin of the Sand Crypsis in the Tenseigan chakra mode and used the long black sword transformed by the truth-seeking ball to kill one by one. In just a moment, the 6 fleeing Chunin of the Sand Crypsis were killed one by one. Seeing this, Jonin Nosuke of the Sand Crypsis shouted, "I'll kill you." After that, he gathered all the chakra in his body and quickly formed a seal with his hands. Hyojin frowned and was just about to step forward and get rid of this Sand Crypsis Jonin. Bang! Suddenly, with a muffled sound, a huge wave of sand spewed out from the ground, blocking Hyojin's way. Then, the giant sandworm hiding under the sand dune also revealed half of its body, and a big mouth full of sharp mouthparts aimed at Hyojin, who was in midair. At this time, Jonin Nosuke of the Sand Crypsis had already completed a very complicated seal, and shouted, "Secret technique, sand soil glue." As he shouted, he spat out a very sticky clay from his mouth, and at the same time, the giant sandworm also spat out a large amount of sticky liquid from its mouth. These 2 gelatinous substances merged together in midair, turning into a huge net that covered the sky and the earth, accompanied by the whistling sound of the wind, covering Hyojin in midair. Hyojin didn't know whether this sticky thing was poisonous or corrosive, so he immediately activated the 5 truth-seeking balls and turned them into a black ball, protecting him inside. After the sticky net covered Hyojin's truth-seeking ball, it quickly hardened like cement, layer by layer pasted on the truth-seeking ball. In the truth-seeking ball, Hyojin's eyes were stunned. Because in the vision of his Tenseigan, Jonin Nosuke of the Sand Crypsis actually took advantage of the gap when he was defending the sticky net and hid in the stomach of the sandworm, and then directly dived into the sand dune, trying to escape by sneaking underground. There is no doubt that Nosuke had long planned to escape through the sandworm. The so-called plan to let other Sand Crypsis companions pass the message was just to let others act as bait to contain Hyojin, and then find a chance to escape. He just didn't expect that Hyojin in the Tenseigan chakra mode was too fast. Killing 6 Jonin of the Sand Crypsis didn't take much time at all, so he had to use the secret technique to try to escape. Humph! Hyojin snorted disdainfully. Immediately, He waved his hand, and the truth-seeking ball shattered the solidified sticky net in an instant, and easily got rid of the secret technique of Nosuk of the sand crypsis. Then, he quickly flew over the sandworm that was sneaking in the sand dune. The giant sandworm was sneaking more than 10 meters under the sand dune, and its speed was not slow. If it was an ordinary person, let alone intercepting it, it's unknown whether they could even find it or not. But for Hyojin in the Tenseigan chakra mode, it was not difficult. After a little hesitation, Hyojin made up his mind, so he stretched out his right hand slightly, made a gesture of holding a sword, and shouted coldly, "Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion." In an instant, 5 truth-seeking balls gathered in his right hand, spinning rapidly, and finally gathered into a golden sword that was as dazzling as the sun. What a powerful force! Even though he had expected it, when he really held the golden sword, Hyojin couldn't help but let out a sigh of emotion. At this time, he seemed to be omnipotent. After glancing at the sand dune below, and confirming the position of the sandworm again, Hyojin did not hesitate and immediately waved the dazzling golden sword that was hundreds of meters long. Swish, heaven and earth seemed to be divided by this sword. A thin crack appeared in the entire sand dune, and a huge amount of blood sprayed out from the crack. At this time, Hyojin glanced at the sand dune below again and found that the giant sandworm hidden more than 10 meters deep in the sand dune had been cut in half from head to tail by the golden sword. And the blood that sprayed out from the crack of the sand dune was all the blood of the giant sandworm. There is no doubt that no matter how powerful a ninja beast is, it can't resist the golden wheel reincarnation explosion in the Tenseigan chakra mode. After all, Otsutsuki Samurai used this trick to cut the moon. Just when Hyojin was about to deactivate the golden wheel reincarnation explosion, he suddenly found that the chakra reaction under the sand dune had not completely disappeared. His eyes were cold, and he poured chakra into the Tenseigan, and after a careful scan, he found that the sand crypsis jonin hiding in the belly of the sandworm was lucky enough to escape the attack of the golden wheel reincarnation explosion. Chapter 104. Seeing the companion in front of him suddenly stop, the sand crypsis ninja behind him quickly asked, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Why did you stop?" The sand crypsis ninja, who stopped, suddenly pointed to the sky. "Look, what's going on with that golden light?" Everyone looked over and saw a dazzling golden light flickering in the distant horizon. The brilliance of the light was not much inferior to the sun hanging high in the sky. "It looks like a golden light? No, isn't the sun above our heads? Is it a mirage?" Several sand crypsis ninjas discussed. At this time, a sand crypsis ninja seemed to think of something and asked, "That direction, it should be Ohura Kazunasuk and the others, right?" Another sand crypsis ninja's face sank. Ohura Kazunasuk can't make such a big scene. The sand crypsis village made a big move this time, not only to hunt down the convoy of the Roran survivors, but also the mysterious person who stole the dragon vein. The dragon vein was sealed by Yondaime Naruto, but the mysterious person not only broke the seal of Yondaime Naruto, but also stole the dragon vein in a very short time. It can be seen that the mysterious person's strength is not to be underestimated. Therefore, the strange scene in the distance made the sand crypsis ninjas present realize that the situation is not good, because this level of strange scene is not something that an ordinary ninja can make. If there is someone who can make it, then it can only be the mysterious person who stole the dragon vein. Therefore, the sand crypsis ninjas did not dare to delay and quickly rushed towards the place where the golden light shone. On Hyojin's side, "Damn, the consumption of golden wheel reincarnation explosion is so big." The golden wheel reincarnation explosion just now almost exhausted all the Tenseigan chakra in Hyojin's body. At this time, he can barely maintain the Tenseigan chakra mode. But once he exits the Tenseigan chakra mode, there is nothing he can do about the sand crypsis jonin hidden more than 10 meters under the sand dune. After all, at this depth, Whether it is taijutsu, ninja tools, or detonation talismans, none of them can play the slightest role. Therefore, Hyojin could only grit his teeth and activate the dragon bloodline chakra without converting it. He forcefully activated the golden wheel reincarnation explosion and slashed at the weak chakra reaction under the sand dune. In any case, those who have seen him activate the Tenseigan chakra mode must be completely silenced. Otherwise, his information will be leaked, and the consequences will be unimaginable. Swish! The golden wheel reincarnation explosion slashed down again, easily cutting through the sand dune layer of more than 10 meters, obliterating the entire sand crypsis jonin hidden deep inside. Phew! After confirming that the sand crypsis jonin is dead, Hyojin let out a sigh of relief. But at this moment, he was surprised to find that the golden wheel reincarnation explosion in his right hand had collapsed on its own. Not only that, starting from the fingers of his right hand, the sky-blue Tenseigan chakra mode slowly returned to its normal state, and then it turned gray a little bit, and finally completely petrified. This? In shock, Hyojin quickly fell to the ground and mobilized the remaining Tenseigan chakra in his body to fight against the petrification phenomenon that began to spread from the fingertips of his right hand. However, because he had used too much Tenseigan chakra when he was proficient in using the truth-seeking ball, and then used the golden wheel reincarnation explosion twice in a row, there was not much Tenseigan chakra left in his body, so no matter how much he squeezed it now, he could only mobilize a very small part of the Tenseigan chakra. As a result, the petrification phenomenon gradually spread from his fingers to his wrist, and then slowly eroded to his elbow. Oh no, this is the invasion of nature energy. After the initial panic, Hyojin quickly reacted. If one does not master the immortal arts and absorbs a large amount of nature energy, the human body will gradually return to nature. That is, there will be an irresistible petrification phenomenon, and eventually become a stone. At this moment, the reason why Hyojin's body has this kind of appearance is because the chakra of the dragon vein contains a very high proportion of nature energy. If he used the Tenseigan chakra to transform it one by one in advance, then there would naturally be no problem in using it. But when he used the second golden wheel reincarnation explosion, there was not much Tenseigan chakra left in Hyojin's body, and he must kill the sand crypsis jonin, so he had to directly use the chakra of the dragon vein. He thought that there should be no problem if he only used it once, but the consumption of the chakra of the golden wheel reincarnation explosion is too much, causing him to use too much dragon vein chakra at one time, causing his body to absorb too much nature energy, and he did not master the method of using the immortal arts, so his body naturally showed the petrification phenomenon. After eroding to the elbow, the petrification phenomenon did not stop and continued to spread to the shoulder. Hyojin no longer hesitated at this time. Once the petrification phenomenon spread to the torso and organs, it would be really impossible to save the situation, so he immediately used the physical regeneration secret technique, at the cost of consuming his lifespan, forcibly squeezing out a new Tenseigan chakra. In an instant, the sky-blue Tenseigan chakra and the petrification phenomenon on his shoulder, the two sides fought back and forth, and both sides were equally matched. After a while, when the nature energy absorbed into the body was exhausted by the Tenseigan chakra, the petrification phenomenon gradually stopped, and it no longer spread to other parts of Hyojin's body. Hyojin let out a long sigh of relief at this time, and couldn't help but secretly rejoice. Fortunately, I found a few sand crypsis ninjas who are not too strong to practice. Otherwise, if I directly fight against a master, the consequences will be really, when attacked by the nature energy, it is very difficult to even resist the nature energy, so if this situation occurs in a fierce battle, it is almost equivalent to sentencing him to death. Whether it is the truth-seeking ball or the golden wheel reincarnation explosion, Hyojin is not familiar with all of these skills, so he can't estimate the consumption of the chakra of these skills in advance. Therefore, in actual combat, it is easy to have all kinds of accidents. Therefore, he is very lucky that the opponents he chose for the first actual combat practice were some Sand Crypsis ninjas who are not too strong. Even if there is an accident, he can still escape calmly. Otherwise, if he challenges a powerful opponent with confidence at the beginning, his own hidden dangers and shortcomings will inevitably be exposed in the fierce battle. At that time, it will be difficult for him to deal with a strong enemy. After all, as long as the hidden dangers exist, they will erupt one day. Instead of erupting at a critical moment, it is better to detonate them in a safer situation, at least to let himself have some confidence. Chapter 105. Pressing two fingers on his right eye. At this time, Yondaime Kazekage's face, like the surrounding environment, was gray with an indescribable gloom. At this time, the Sand Crypsis consultant Chiyo walked over and asked, "Did you find any clues?" The 4 generations of Kazekage shook his head. He controlled the Eye of the Sand and scanned the surrounding desert for dozens of miles, but didn't find any useful clues. In this regard, Chiyo wasn't too surprised, because the desert is like this. With the passage of time, the wind and sand will naturally cover everything. Even if the mysterious person really left any traces, it will gradually disappear in the wind and become difficult to find. After removing the Eye of the Sand, the 4 generations of Kazekage walked to the edge of the crack with a gloomy face. This crack is the one left by Hyojin when he killed the giant sandworm with the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion. Because a lot of the giant sandworm's blood and colloidal body fluid splashed out, the edge solidified, so the trace of the crack is still very clear, temporarily not covered by the wind and sand. Squatting down next to the crack, the 4 generations of Kazekage stretched out their hands and gently pressed on the sand, closed their eyes and sensed for a moment, then said, "The sandworm died here, it's completely dead." Another sand village advisor on the side, Mikuro, frowned. Even if sandworm is cut in half at the waist, it doesn't necessarily mean that he will die, right? Sandworms are a very special kind of ninja beast. Their self-healing ability is extremely strong. Even if a small part of their body is gone, there is a certain probability that they can survive. Not to mention that the sandworm that has hidden in the sand dunes is almost invincible, even with Hai's rich experience. It is hard to imagine what kind of attack can kill a giant sandworm that is hiding deep underground and has extremely strong vitality. Chiyo asked the 4 generations of Kazekage with uncertainty. "In the village, I'm afraid only you can do this, right?" The 4 generations of Kazekage pondered for a moment and shook his head. The sandworm died more than 10 meters underground. At this depth, I only have the confidence to trap it. Killing it would be very difficult. Upon hearing that, the 2 Sand Crypsis consultants went silent at the same time. With just a few words, they had more or less figured out the mysterious man's strength. After a while, Hai Laozong asked, "Who could it be?" In the eyes of the upper echelons of the Sand Crypsis, the strength of this mysterious person who stole the dragon vein has definitely reached the level of Kage, and it is impossible for him to be unknown in the shinobi world. Chiyo still insisted on his previous judgment. To be able to unlock 4 generations Naruto's dragon vein seal, that person can only be Mai's people. At this time, a member of the Umbu tribe of the Sand Crypsis arrived in front of them and reported, "Kazekage-sama, 2 consultants, we followed the tracks all the way and found that the convoy of Roran survivors has entered the Land of Rain." The eyes of the 4 generations of Kazekage suddenly sharpened, and he muttered to himself, "Could it be the legendary demigod, Hanzo the pepper fish of the Rain Village?" Hai Laozong said, "If it's him, then things will be troublesome." Under Pain's closed policy, all information transmission to the outside of the Land of Rain has been cut off, which makes everyone in the shinobi world believe that the leader of the Rain Village is still Hanzo the Pepper Fish. In the original story, the news of Hanzo's death has been covered up by the Akatsuki organization until more than 10 years later, when Jiraiya personally sneaked into the Land of Rain to inquire about the Akatsuki organization. He was surprised to find that Hanzo the Pepper Fish has long been killed by pain. At this time, the Sand Crypsis Umbu asked, "Kazekage-sama, do you need us to sneak into the Land of Rain to capture those Rorin survivors?" The 4 generations of Kazekage shook their head. Even the Sand Crypsis, one of the 5 great shinobi villages, doesn't dare to underestimate Hanzo the Pepper Fish, who is known as the demigod. After weighing the pros and cons, the 4 generations of Kazekage said to the 2 consulting elders beside him, "Report the news of the dragon vein being stolen to Mai and see his reaction." The 2 consulting elders nodded at the same time. In the absence of confirming who the person who stole the dragon vein is, the only thing the Sand Crypsis can do is to inquire about the information from all over the place. On Hyojin's side, sitting cross-legged on the back of the Kazekage puppet of the 3 generations, Kuroto rushed towards the village while summarizing the gains and losses of the previous battle. The defensive power of the truth-seeking ball is very strong, but when attacked fiercely, the consumption of the chakra will also increase sharply, so I can't develop the habit of completely relying on the truth-seeking ball for defense. The attack speed is also a bit slow. If it's a sneak attack, it's fine, but if it's a frontal attack, the enemy can easily avoid it. The efficiency is too low. It's too difficult to maintain 5 truth-seeking balls, 3 is just right. Anyway, whether it's the Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion or the Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion, at this stage, it's not necessary to invest too many truth-seeking balls. After summarizing these experiences, Hyojin glanced at his right arm again. There is no doubt that after becoming the Jinchuriki of the Dragon Vein, chakra became rich, his mentality became a little arrogant, his emotions were affected by the sudden power. He didn't pay enough attention to the enemy, and made a mistake in the last blow. This is the shinobi world. Underestimating the enemy can lead to death. In the bottom of his heart, Hyojin silently warned himself. Such examples are almost innumerable in the shinobi world, such as Orochimaru was killed by Itachi twice, Obsidian and Madara, the 2 Jubi's Jinchuriki, were killed by a sneak attack, and so on. Even the strong Otsutsuki Kagaya was killed by Naruto's reverse harem technique. In the shinobi world, no matter how strong a person is, he will be killed if he is careless. However, this mistake is not entirely a bad thing for Hyojin, because he suddenly realized that the chakra of the dragon vein is a medium for perceiving the energy of nature. The senjutsu is not a unique means, but as long as it can use the energy of nature without any side effects, it can be classified as senjutsu. Therefore, among the senjutsu, there are the Toad Senjutsu of Mount Myaboku, the Snake Senjutsu of Ryuchi Cave, and the Shikatsu Senjutsu of Shikatsu Forest. Even Yugo and the curse developed by Yugo can be regarded as a type of senjutsu. And no matter how many kinds of senjutsu there are, if you want to practice senjutsu, you need a medium. For example, to practice the Toad Senjutsu of Mount Myaboku, you need to use the unique toad oil of Mount Myaboku. Naruto was able to absorb the natural energy in the air by smearing the toad oil on his skin, with the help of the toad oil as a medium. Dragon Vein Chakra itself contains a lot of natural energy, so directly absorbing the chakra of Mount Myaboku is equivalent to applying the toad oil of Mount Myaboku to a certain extent. Rubbing his chin, Hyojin continued to ponder. Practicing the senjutsu of Mount Myaboku will make the user's sage mode have obvious toad characteristics, and practicing the snake senjutsu of Ryuchi Cave will also make the user's sage mode have obvious snake characteristics. Chapter 106. My Village, Uchiha Clan Land. Uchiha Shinichi was kneeling alone outside the mansion with a solemn look on his face. The death of his beloved made him feel gloomy, but he didn't give up hope, because he firmly believes that the glorious Uchiha clan will not let go of that damned murderer. Uchiha clan will never die in vain, this is something he firmly believes. Looking at the closed door in front of him, there was a hint of expectation in his eyes. At the moment, the Uchiha clan meeting was being held in the mansion, and all the elites of the Uchiha clan were gathered here to discuss the murder of Kurumi Uchiha by a root ninja. Suddenly, he frowned, because he found that his Sharingan had opened on its own. Recently, for some reason, he found that his Sharingan was a little out of control, it was very awkward to use, and his pupillary powers have inexplicably increased by a lot. If this was in the past, he would be very happy, and even show off to the whole clan, but now that Kurumi has just died, even if his pupillary powers have greatly increased, he is not in the mood to do so. Inside the mansion, Jishui was sitting in the corner with a tired look on his face. This kind of exhaustion is not all caused by Hyojin's shadow clone, but more of it is actually spiritual exhaustion, because the relationship between the Uchiha clan and the village not only did not ease, but instead became even sharper. Jishui instinctively felt that something was strange about the murder of Kurumi Uchiha by a root ninja. Because he believes in Hyojin's judgment, before the village officially signs a truce agreement with Kumo village, the elders of the village will never attack the Uchiha clan. Based on this judgment, he feels that the Danzo clan has no reason to kill Kurumi Uchiha. And with the style of the root ninja, if they really want to attack, they will definitely attack together. It is impossible for them to deliberately let Shinichi Uchiha discover them, and then flee in panic. No matter how I look at it, it looks like a trap. Jishui sighed inwardly. At first, he didn't quite believe what Hyojin said, that someone outside the village was always plotting against Uchiha and my village. But as this matter happened, he vaguely felt that there might really be a member of the Uchiha bloodline who had been left outside the village and was secretly controlling everything from behind the scenes. Patriarch Danzo is too much. He dares to refuse to hand over the culprit. This is a provocation to our Uchiha clan. Right, we can't let him off. We must let them know how powerful Uchiha is. The Uchiha clansmen in the mansion were as fierce and restless as usual. As the patriarch, Uchiha Fuyue sat cross-legged with his arms crossed in front of his chest. His expression was solemn as usual. After suppressing the quarrel, he glanced at Jishui in the corner and asked, "What did the 3 generations say?" Jishui shook his head helplessly. My request to see him was rejected. Since the suspension of Team 11, Jishui lost the right to directly meet the 3 generations Naruto. If he wants to see the 3 generations, he needs to ask the 3 generations for permission like other ninjas. But this time, Jishui's request was rejected by the 3 generations. Fuyue heard this and his face became gloomy. Regardless of whether this matter was done by Danzo or not, the hostility of the village's leaders towards Uchiha is no longer hidden. If this continues, the war between Uchiha and the village will eventually break out. Unlike ordinary clansmen, as the patriarch, Fuyue is more aware of Uchiha's situation in the village. Although the strength of the 3 generations Naruto has begun to decline due to old age, but he is still one of the strongest ninjas in the village. Even as the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, he doesn't have the confidence to win against him. Coupled with the few people in the advisory group, as well as the powerful Jiraiya, and a large number of elite Umbu ninjas and root ninjas, if the Uchiha clan were to launch a rebellion, the chances of them winning would be very slim. More importantly, the attitude of the major clans in Konoha is too ambiguous. If the Uchiha clan falls into a predicament, they may support the Uchiha clan, but if the Uchiha clan raises the flag of rebellion, Fugaku can be sure that these clans will never stand on the side of the Uchiha clan, they will even join the Konoha clan without hesitation. Looking at the agitated expressions of the clansmen in front of him, Fuyue silently sighed in his heart. How could he not want to restore the glory of the Uchiha clan, and take back the position of Naruto, which in the eyes of the Uchiha, should have belonged to them? But with the current situation, if he makes any strange moves, the whole clan may be destroyed. He is really powerless. Inside Naruto's office, while the Uchiha clan is holding a clan meeting, the 3 generations Naruto, Danzo, and 2 other advisors are in Naruto's office, urgently discussing the murder of Kuri Uchiha. Thump thump thump, the use of Danzo's anger? Provoke the beardless Bai-Gue? Pull out the cormorant skeleton and fall? Play? Die? Think about the Linden Emperor's pretty E-Badger model? Zhuan Shao Chun asked. Then why did your people kill Uchiha's clansmen? After a little hesitation, Danzo told the situation reported by the Root Ninja to the several people in the office, and then said, I suspect that this matter was self-directed by Uchiha. Hamura said in a deep voice, Do you have any evidence? This is obviously a blackmail. After an angry snort, Danzo continued, They want to take advantage of the peace talks between the village and the Cloud Village to blackmail us. It has always been Danzo plotting against others, but this time, he was inexplicably carried the black pot, which naturally made him very angry. Although Kuroda is also vaguely aware that there may be other forces behind this matter, but for now, he must point the spearhead at the Uchiha clan. As for how to investigate in private, that is another matter. Danzo's words made the 3 generations a little upset. The peace talks between the village and the Cloud Village are not going well. It has been several months since the end of the conflict, but the representatives of the 2 sides still have many differences on how to sign the peace agreement. As the party that was attacked, just agreeing to the peace talks has put a lot of pressure on the 3 generations. If they make concessions on the terms, then even with the prestige of the 3 generations, they will not be able to suppress the criticism in the village. However, Cloud Village was very stubborn and refused to budge on the issue of reparations, making things very difficult for the Sandaime. Putting down the pipe, 3 generations firmly said, This matter must be explained to Uchiha. I don't want any chaos in the village during the peace talks. Danzo's eyes became cold and asked, What explanation do you want to give them? The 3 generations also know that they can't force Danzo too much, otherwise it is likely to backfire, so he said, Let your people personally explain to Fuyue. I believe that Fuyue will not do anything stupid. Chapter 107. Under the arrangement of Danzo, the Root Ninja, who killed Kurumi Uchiha soon appeared in the land of the Uchiha clan. His appearance immediately caused an uproar. If it weren't for Patriarch Fuyue personally coming to the Uchiha clan, he would have already died under the siege of the Uchiha clan. After taking him to a secret room, Fuyue drove all the other clansmen out, leaving only Jishue behind. After all the clansmen left, Fuyue coldly asked, What is your purpose of coming here? The Root Ninja didn't hesitate and immediately explained the situation to Fuyue and Jishue in detail, and finally added, At that time, I was worried that I would be killed by the mastermind behind the scenes, so I didn't stay to explain. Fuyue and Jishue immediately fell into deep thought when they heard this. If the Root Ninja didn't lie, then the situation is very complicated. This means that in addition to some of the higher-ups of the village, there is another force that is secretly targeting the Uchiha clan. After thinking for a while, Fuyue asked, So, Kurumi and you are both being manipulated by someone? The Root Ninja nodded. Fuyue then asked, Then can you tell what kind of technique it is? For example, some kind of genjutsu? Or some kind of secret technique like shadow impersonation jutsu? The Root Ninja shook his head with an embarrassed expression. I'm sorry, I can't tell. Fuyue frowned and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. Obviously, he didn't believe the Root Ninja's words. At this time, Jishui suddenly opened his Sharingan, and the three Tomo rotated rapidly, and asked the root ninja in a deep voice, "Everything you said just now, is it the truth?" The root ninja, who unknowingly fell under Jishui's genjutsu, replied with a dull expression, "I'm telling the truth." Jishui nodded towards Fuyue. He didn't lie. Fuyue asked, "What do you think?" Jishui answered almost without hesitation, "Someone wants to provoke the conflict between our Uchiha clan and the village. Chief, we must not be fooled." Fugaku waved his hand and said, "Send him out." Yes. Outside the mansion, Shinichi Uchiha was overjoyed to learn that the murderer of his beloved had arrived at their territory. In his mind, since the murderer had stepped into their territory, he would soon be able to exact his revenge. Creak, at this moment, the door to the mansion slowly opened. Shinichi Uchiha, who had been waiting outside the door for a long time, stared at the root ninja who followed Jishui, and unconsciously opened his Sharingan. Seeing Shinichi Uchiha, who was waiting outside the door, Jishui's expression darkened, and said apologetically, "Shinichi, things are not what you think, please don't be impulsive." Shinichi Uchiha was startled when he heard this, and seemed to realize something. His anger surged, and he roared, "What do you mean by this?" Jishui nodded slightly. "The chief asked me to send him away." "How is this possible?" Shinichi Uchiha took a few steps back in shock and muttered, "Could it be? Could it be that even the chief has succumbed?" Seeing that Shinichi Uchiha's emotions were getting more and more unstable, Jishui was worried that he would do something drastic, so he activated his Sharingan and cast Genjutsu on him. Uchiha Shinichi fainted in the next instant, and Uchiha Shinichi fainted. Stepping forward to catch the fainted Uchiha Shinichi, Jishui slowly helped him to the side and whispered, "Have a good sleep." Looking at the Uchiha Shinichi subdued by Jishui, the root ninja was quite helpless. He also knew that the Uchiha clan is not to be trifled with, and his identity as a root member may not necessarily be useful sometimes. "Let's go." After settling the Uchiha Shinichi, Jishui urged the root ninja. There are already a lot of people from the Uchiha clan surrounding them, and Jishui is very clear in his heart that every minute this root ninja stays in the clanland is 1 minute more variable. But not waiting for him and the root ninja to take a few steps, suddenly the cold and indifferent voice of Shinichi Uchiha suddenly came from behind. "So, Kurumi died in vain?" Jishui was taken aback and turned back abruptly. Although Jishui didn't take the genjutsu too seriously just now, but after all, it was a genjutsu cast by his Manjikyu Sharingan. According to common sense, with the power of the 3 Tomo Sharingan, Uchiha Shinichi should be in a coma for at least 10 minutes before waking up. But who would have thought that Shinichi Uchiha would wake up in just a minute or two? And unlike the shock and anger on his face before, the indifference shown by Shinichi Uchiha at this time made him feel inexplicable palpitations, as if something bad is about to happen. Jishui explained, "Shinichi, I will explain it to you later, things are not as simple as you think." Shinichi Uchiha said, "I know what you want to explain, but it doesn't matter, I saw him kill Kurumi with my own eyes, my Sharingan will not lie to me, he must die, no matter what conspiracy he is involved in, he must die." Shinichi Uchiha almost stressed every word, showing his determination. Jishui shook his head. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you kill him." Shinichi Uchiha slowly reached into the ninja bag on his waist and took out 2 kunai. While assuming a fighting posture, he said, "Then you are my enemy." At this moment, Patriarch Fuyue walked out of the mansion and shouted, "Enough!" Seeing the Patriarch, Shinichi Uchiha's indifferent expression changed a little, and asked with expectation, "Patriarch, you will definitely avenge Kurumi, right?" Fuyue said flatly, "He is not the murderer." Shinichi Uchiha argued, "But Kurumi was killed by him, I saw it with my own eyes." Fuyue looked at Shinichi Uchiha and knew that he can't be convinced with just a few words, so he ordered the clansmen around him, Send him to the prison room, let him calm down. Yes. Several Jonin Uchiha working in the police force acted together, quickly subduing Uchiha Shinichi, and then dragging the dazed Uchiha Shinichi away. Jishuei did not dare to delay anymore, and quickly led the root ninja out of Uchiha's land. Outside the Uchiha's land. Leaning? Magpie can move? Ping 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 ping? Cough tau fu yu qianmu. Pang Ping sent me di Juju. Seeing that his subordinates were brought out safely by Jishuei, he frowned slightly, as if he was a little disappointed with the result. Hyojin, who sneaked back to the village, sneaked back to his home, and thought to himself, what's going on? Why do I feel that the atmosphere in the village is not right? Chapter 108. After quietly sneaking back to his home, Hyojin breathed a sigh of relief when he saw that Jishuei's shadow clone was still there. Jishuei's shadow clone quickly greeted him. Senpai, you are finally back. Hyojin smiled and said, Thank you for your hard work. At this time, Jishuei's shadow clone took out a note and handed it to Hyojin while explaining. This is the list of visitors during your absence. I have recorded them one by one. You are really careful. Hyojin smiled and then stretched out his left hand to take the note. Just as Hyojin looked at the list of visitors recorded on the note, he noticed that Hyojin's right hand has been in his pocket out of habit. Jishuei's shadow clone asked curiously, Senpai, what happened to your hand? Hyojin replied casually, Oh, there was a small accident, don't worry about it. After these days of continuous use of the Tenseigan chakra, most of the nature energy accumulated in Hyojin's right arm has been removed. At first, the petrified part almost climbed up to the shoulder, but now the petrified part has fallen below the elbow. According to Hyojin's own speculation, in another 3 to 5 days, the remaining nature energy in his right arm will be completely removed, and all the petrified parts will be restored to their original state. Soon, Hyojin finished reading the list of visitors recorded by Jishuei's shadow clone. In the nearly 20 days that he sneaked out of the village, the most frequent visitor was his fiancée Hinata, followed by his colleagues of Class 11, Kakashi and Guy each visited once, and then Richa Kuroto came once. And these visitors were politely sent away by Jishuei's shadow clone with the excuse of closing the door to study ninjutsu, so in the entire village, except for Jishuei, no one else knows that he sneaked out of the village these days. After explaining everything that needs to be said, Jishuei's shadow clone said goodbye. Senpai, then I will go. Hyojin nodded gently. Bang, accompanied by a burst of white smoke, Jishuei's shadow clone dispelled itself. At this time, Hyojin pulled out his right hand that has been in his pocket, looked at it carefully, and then silently operated the Tenseigan chakra in his body. His right hand is petrified, which has a great impact on Hyojin's combat effectiveness. First of all, he can't make hand seals, which means that he can't enter the Tenseigan chakra mode, nor can he use ninjutsu or seal technique. Therefore, other things have to be put aside, of his right. Dong of. Not long after, there was a sound of knocking on the door. After wrapping his right hand with bandages, Hyojin opened the door and welcomed Jishuei in, and asked, Why are you in a panic? You are not like this usually. Jishuei was still panting and said, Senpai, something has happened. When returning to the village, Hyojin felt that the atmosphere in the village was not right, so he was not surprised. You can tell me slowly. Jishuei quickly told Hyojin in detail about Uchiha Kurumi being killed by the root ninja, even including the explanation of the root ninja and some of his own guesses. After listening, Hyojin said to himself, Why is it this Uchiha Shinichi again? Before leaving the village, Jishuei mentioned to him that because of Uchiha Shinichi, a ninja of the root ninja disappeared, causing the relationship between the Uchiha clan and the village to become tense. As soon as he came back, He heard that because of Uchiha Shinichi, the conflict between Uchiha clan and the village became more serious. This made Hyojin have to pay attention to Uchiha Shinichi. This person. Uchiha Shinichi's age is not much different from Hyojin's, and he has already opened the Sharingan a long time ago. Although his current strength is not considered top in the Uchiha clan, considering his age, his talent is obvious. Otherwise, the proud Uchiha clan would not have sent him to challenge Hyojin. Thinking of this, Hyojin couldn't help but think to himself, could it be that Obsidian has his eyes on him? In his impression, Obsidian often moves around Mai and even sneaks into the Naka shrine of the Uchiha clan several times, so Hyojin can't rule out the possibility that Obsidian has his eyes on Uchiha Shinichi. But isn't the last partner that Obsidian chose to cooperate with Itachi a few years later? Could it be that the butterfly effect that I have brought has affected Obsidian's choice? Hyojin is not sure if all of this has anything to do with him. The current Mai is very different from the Mai of the original time and space, especially the early defection of Orochimaru, which caused many subsequent things to change. As for the reason why Orochimaru defected in advance, Hyojin still hasn't figured it out. After pondering for a long time, Hyojin asked, "Where is he now?" Jishui didn't expect Hyojin to suddenly ask this. She was stunned for a moment before quickly replying. He was temporarily locked in the prison room of the police building by the Patriarch. Hyojin asked again, "Has his pupil power improved?" Jishui recalled the scene not long ago and said, "The illusion I cast on him was quickly broken by him, completely beyond my expectations." Patting Jishui on the shoulder, Hyojin said earnestly, "You Uchiha people are always too superstitious about your own illusion. Even you can't avoid it. You will suffer in the future." Jishui scratched her head and smiled awkwardly. "This is the result of my carelessness." As Hyojin said, he raised his right arm and then said, "Why do you think the person behind the scenes let the root ninja kill Uchiha Kurumi, and also let Uchiha Shinichi see it?" After moving her eyes away from Hyojin's right arm, Jishui replied, "He wants to provoke conflict between us and the village." Hyojin shook his head and said, "This reminds me of a cliché routine." "Why is it cliché?" "Because many people use it." "But why do so many people use it?" "Because it really works." Routine. Shui, however, was completely confused. Hyojin didn't explain, but said, "Let's go, take me to see him." Police building, prison room. Suddenly, a twisted vortex appeared in the dark prison room, and a masked man walked out of it. Uchiha Shinichi, who was sitting in the corner, covered his face with his hands and didn't seem to notice the appearance of the masked man. The masked man said in a deep voice, "I heard about what happened to you, do you need help?" Uchiha Shinichi slowly stood up and looked at the masked man. "You did it, right?" With that said, the three Magatama in Uchiha Shinichi's Sharingan rotated and finally condensed into a strange pattern. Chapter 109. Hyojin was wearing a homely kimono with his right hand in his chest pocket. He had a lazy look on his face as he strolled leisurely on the street. Jishui followed closely behind him with a worried look on her face. "Senpai, why do you want to see Shinichi?" After hesitating for a while, Jishui still asked the question in her heart. Hyojin said lightly, "Nothing, I just want to confirm his condition." "Condition?" Jishui was a little confused and asked, "What condition?" Hyojin changed the topic and said in a low voice, "Listen to my secret code later. If I say so it's you to someone, you must immediately use Kodo Amatsukami on him. Don't hold back, use all your power." Jishui was shocked when she heard this. "Senpai, Kodo Amatsukami is a forbidden technique that can play with other people's will. How can it be used so easily?" Hyojin glanced at Jishui and shook his head. "If you have never considered using Kodo Amatsukami in battle, Why bother to tell the secret of Kodo Amatsukami? Jishui was silent. At this time, Suijin didn't beat around the bush and said bluntly, I suspect that Uchiha Shinichi might have already been in contact with the mastermind behind the scenes, so we can't rule out the possibility of encountering the mastermind behind the scenes. For Obsidian, who had godly power, my village was like his own backyard in his eyes. He could come and go as he pleased. If Uchiha Shinichi was really targeted by Obsidian, then it was not impossible to meet Obsidian when meeting Uchiha Shinichi. Now that Obsidian might not know the secret of Kodo Amatsukami, it would be a good opportunity to get rid of Obsidian once and for all. Jishui smiled and said disapprovingly, You must be joking. Shinichi is locked in the detention room of the police building. How could the mastermind appear there? In Jishui's view, the security of the police building was not much weaker than the Naruto building. No matter how strong the mastermind was, it was impossible for him to sneak into the detention room of the police building without anyone noticing. Kuroda didn't explain anything and said directly, It's just in case, anyway. Remember, if you really meet the mastermind behind the scenes, don't hold back, don't make any unnecessary probing attacks. Just use Kodo Amatsukami and use your full strength. The other party is likely to have Sharingan. If you don't use your full strength, you may not be able to control him. In the detention room of the police building. A false world, Shinichi Uchiha carefully digested the masked man's words and looked a little confused. At this time, he already knew that he had awakened a powerful ocular power above the 3 Magatama Sharingan, but this did not make him feel the slightest joy. On the contrary, he fell into deep self-blame and loneliness. Because at the moment when he was thrown into the detention room, he realized that the murderer who killed his beloved was not the root ninja, nor was it the mastermind behind the scenes, but himself. All of this was caused by him. It was also at that moment that he officially awakened the cursed eyes. After a moment, Shinichi Uchiha clenched his fists and said, Thank you for letting me see clearly what a village is, what a family is, but you must die. The masked man crossed his arms over his chest and said in his usual low tone, Go to the Naka shrine, the stone tablet in the secret room has all the truth. After saying that, the masked man did not fight with Shinichi Uchiha and directly disappeared into the twisting vortex. Before knowing what kind of pupil technique Uchiha Shinichi's Manjikyu Sharingan is, even the masked man is not sure that he can win. After all, the Manjikyu Sharingan has many strange pupil techniques, and maybe Uchiha Shinichi's pupil technique just happens to restrain him, so he doesn't want to risk fighting with Shinichi Uchiha in the police building. What's more, his purpose has been achieved. He personally gave birth to a Manjikyu Sharingan possessor of Manjikyu Sharingan who is full of hatred towards Mai and his family. Even if he can't accept him as a subordinate for the time being, it will still be beneficial to him. Looking at the place where the masked man disappeared, Shinichi Uchiha's face was gloomy. He thought that with the Manjikyu Sharingan, he would be able to see through the strange methods of the masked man, but he didn't expect that the masked man would disappear in front of him, and his Manjikyu Sharingan still couldn't find any clues. Who is he? Putting away the Manjikyu Sharingan, Shinichi Uchiha murmured again, Naka Shrine. When Hyojin came to the door of the police building, the Uchiha people around him all cast hostile and curious eyes at him. Jishui said a little awkwardly, Senpai, please don't mind. Hyojin smiled and didn't say anything. His reputation in the village was actually raised by stepping on Uchiha, starting from defeating Jishui in the promotion to Tokubetsu Ninja, and later, he defeated Uchiha Shinichi and Uchiha. This series of victories over Uchiha has made him the leader of the younger generation in the village, and has also become a topic of conversation among the villagers. After all, the clash between Hyuga and Uchiha is a big topic in itself. It is also because of this that Danzo, who has been targeting Uchiha, personally came forward to invite him to join the route. Otherwise, Hyojin is just a Tokubetsu Jonin, Danzo may not come forward in person. Thinking of the grudge between Uchiha Shinichi and Hyojin, Jishuei had a headache and said to Hyojin in advance, "Senpai, I'm afraid that Shinichi has some misunderstandings about you, so if he says something he shouldn't say, please forgive him." Hyojin nodded and said, "Don't worry, I won't lower myself to his level." Jishuei breathed a sigh of relief, and then led Hyojin into the police building. After obtaining the permission of Patriarch Fuyue, Jishuei and Hyojin went directly to the prison cell where Uchiha Shinichi is being held. Seeing Uchiha Shinichi sitting in the corner of the cell with his head down, Jishuei quickly said, "Shinichi, I came here to explain the whole story to you." Uchiha Shinichi indifferently looked up at Jishuei, and then moved his eyes to Hyojin, who was next to Jishuei. Jishuei was afraid that Uchiha Shinichi will act recklessly, so he quickly stood in front of Hyojin. The reason why Uchiha Shinichi often hides outside the village to practice is to defeat Hyojin and wash away his shame. These things, Jishuei has heard about them in Uchiha's territory. However, unexpectedly, Shinichi's gaze didn't stay on Suejin's body for too long. He quickly withdrew his gaze and once again returned to his usual cold and unapproachable aura. Something's wrong. Chapter 110. Almost instantly, Hyojin and Jishuei felt that something was wrong. With Shinichi Uchiha's carefree personality, he might be hysterical or in pain after such a blow, but it was impossible for him to be so calm and indifferent. Jishuei thought that Shinichi Uchiha had lost all hope this time, so she couldn't help but feel a little guilty. Kuroto, on the other hand, thought in his heart, "Could it be that I've really guessed correctly?" At this time, Jishuei still wanted to say something. Shinichi Uchiha raised his hand and waved it slowly. "Someone has told me the whole story. You can go now. I want to be alone for a while." Jishuei looked at Hyojin, seeking his opinion. Hyojin pondered for a moment and said, "Let's go." After leaving the police building, Hyojin asked Jishuei, "When will you let him out?" Jishuei answered, "The Patriarch just wants him to calm down. There's no other meaning. Maybe he'll be released tomorrow." Hyojin nodded silently and didn't say anything. Recalling the dramatic change in Uchiha Shinichi's temperament, Jishuei asked in confusion, "Senior, you said that you want to confirm his state. What do you mean?" "That's just a casual remark. I'm just a little curious." After giving a perfunctory reply to Jishuei, Hyojin continued, "Be careful during this period. Remember what I said. Once you meet the mastermind, don't hesitate to use Kodo Amatsukami immediately." After saying goodbye to Jishuei, Hyojin did not continue to wander on the street but immediately returned home. Just now, in the police building's cell, Kuroto already faintly felt the cold aura emanating from Uchiha Shinichi's body, although he isn't sure whether Uchiha Shinichi has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan or not. Kuroto still has to think of corresponding countermeasures in advance. "If I were him, what would I do after awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan?" Hyojin urged the Tenseigan chakra to consume the nature energy on his right hand while trying to put himself in Uchiha Shinichi's position and think about how to benefit from it. However, he soon dispelled this idea. Because the thoughts of the Uchiha clan are really not something that ordinary people can guess, not to mention Uchiha, who may have just awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. Changing his train of thought, Hyojin pondered, "No matter how paranoid his thoughts are, he will not give up on revenge, so I only need to consider who the first target of his revenge is." The next day. Sure enough, as Jishuei expected, after seeing Uchiha Shinichi calm down, Patriarch Fuyue quickly released him from the prison room. After regaining his freedom, Uchiha Shinichi did not go around causing trouble, but returned home directly. It was not until late at night that he sneaked out alone and rushed in the direction of the Naka shrine. Inside the Naka shrine, the two Uchiha Chunin in charge of the night duty were chatting in a low voice. "By the way, do you think we will fight with Cloud again?" "Humph, let's fight. Why would I be afraid of Cloud?" Suddenly, there was a sound of footsteps outside the shrine. "It's so late, who could it be?" After muttering a sentence, one of the Uchiha Chunin slowly got up and was ready to go out and see. At this time, the door of the shrine suddenly opened, and Uchiha Shinichi, dressed in black, walked in from the outside. "Shinichi." The Uchiha Chunin was startled and immediately asked, "What are you doing at the shrine so late?" Uchiha Shinichi moved his gaze towards Kuroto. Bang! With just one look, the Uchiha Chunin who asked the question fainted on the ground and made a muffled sound. "What are you doing?" The other Uchiha Chunin didn't have time to get up and was also controlled by the illusion and fainted on the side. After putting down the two clansmen on night duty, Uchiha Shinichi opened the Manjikyu Sharingan and carefully scanned around the shrine, and finally found the entrance to the secret room under a stone brick. After walking into the secret room, a stone tablet appeared in front of Uchiha Shinichi. After reading the contents of the stone tablet for a long time, he muttered to himself, "Is this the truth?" A few days later. "Phew, it's finally done." Hyojin breathed a sigh of relief while moving his right hand. After a few days of hard work, he finally completely expelled the remaining nature energy in his right hand, restoring his entire right arm from its petrified state to its original state. With the recovery of his right hand, his combat effectiveness has also returned to its peak state. It's just that after these days of dealing with nature energy, it made him deeply aware of a problem. That is, controlling nature energy is both difficult and dangerous. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh. No wonder there are so few people who can learn immortal jutsu. In the original story, even at the end of the Fourth Shinobi World War, there are only a few ninjas who have mastered immortal jutsu, including Jiraiya, who needs the power of the two Toad Masters to enter the Sage Mode. Just think about it, even a talented ninja like Orochimaru can't master immortal jutsu. One can imagine how difficult it is to learn immortal jutsu. Therefore, Hyojin decided to put aside the matter of immortal jutsu for the time being, because in this regard, he has no clue. If he tries rashly, the risk is too high. And now he has a new idea or a new way of thinking. The previous actual combat in the Land of Wind exposed a lot of problems, and at the same time, it also made him understand some of the characteristics of the Tenseigan chakra mode. Take Truth-Seeking Ball as an example. Condensing Truth-Seeking Ball under the Tenseigan chakra mode is obviously a kind of shortcut, because even if he enters the Tenseigan chakra mode, Hyojin doesn't have the yang, yin, wind, water, fire, thunder, and earth chakra attributes, so whether it is condensing Truth-Seeking Ball or maintaining Truth-Seeking Ball, it is very difficult for him. And to completely solve this problem, he can only start from the root of the problem. In short, it is to let oneself have these 7 chakra attributes, and then merge them into one, becoming a Kekkei Genkai above the Kekkei limit and Kekkei elimination. According to common sense, this kind of thing is impossible to do, because in the current shinobi world, it seems that only the ancestor of chakra, Otsutsuki Kagaya, can do this. But on the way back to the village, Hyojin came up with an almost fantastical idea. If this idea can be realized, then mastering Kekkei Genkai is not completely impossible. Chapter 111. Staring at the long and dense list in front of him, Hyojin couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. In order to complete his grand vision, the equipment, machinery, technology, and all kinds of materials needed were simply too many. He only had to comb through them briefly to list out a large pile. And these are only 1/10 of the total needed. To complete this vision, it is absolutely impossible for me to do it alone. Pushing the list aside, Hyojin shook his head gently. Kuroto quickly realized that it is impossible to accomplish this idea by himself. He needs to rely on the power of his family, the power of the village, and even the power of Orochimaru to be able to achieve this. After thinking for a long time, he destroyed the list he had just made and muttered to himself, "It seems that I have to build a new laboratory." The laboratory that Orochimaru left him before was only a laboratory that focused on genetic observation. Although Hyojin made some modifications in private, he only added some small petri dishes and simple equipment for gene extraction. The entire laboratory still did not have the conditions for large-scale live experiment. This is also the main reason why Orochimaru has long noticed the changes in Hyojin, but did not suspect that Hyojin's Byakugan research has made major achievements. Because Hyojin's laboratory does not have the conditions for large-scale live experiments at all. In Orochimaru's scientific view, any experimental results are stacked up by countless failures, so he does not believe that Hyojin can skip the most important link of live experiments and achieve success in one go. Of course, all this is attributed to Orochimaru not knowing the secret of Tenseigan. Moreover, Hyojin being able to survive the genetic recombination is also a very small probability. Even now, in retrospect, he is afraid of his own recklessness. Afterwards, he has estimated the probability. According to his own mediocre qualifications, to activate all the special gene sequences, he needs to survive 16 times of genetic recombination, and each genetic recombination is like a tour before the gates of hell. To be able to survive 16 times in a row, the success rate is almost less than 1%. Therefore, he can succeed. He really hit the jackpot, just like winning an SSR with only one draw. However, once was enough to fight for their lives like this. Hyojin knows that luck will not always be on his side, so he will not gamble with his life again. For all future experiments, he will first carry out a careful demonstration and a lot of live experiment. Only after confirming that it is safe will he apply it on himself. Thinking of this, Hyojin took out the artificial tailed beast scroll obtained from Orochimaru and recorded some data and experience when he made the artificial tailed beast on the scroll. The dragon vein can be hidden from others, but not from Orochimaru. After all, Hyojin's artificial tailed beast scroll was obtained from Orochimaru. What's more, he promised to share the experimental data with Orochimaru at the beginning. Considering that he will need Orochimaru in many places in the future, he doesn't want to go back on his word on this matter and destroy the cooperative relationship between him and Orochimaru. Moreover, Hyojin speculated that Orochimaru may not be interested in the artificial tailed beast. One must know that Orochimaru has a lot of projects in his hands, whether it is undead reincarnation, impure reincarnation, or curse seal, etc., all of them are quite promising research projects. Psychic art. Bang! After a burst of smoke, the one-eyed viper with its tongue sticking out appeared in front of Hyojin. After handing the scroll of the artificial tailed beast to the one-eyed viper, Suijin didn't say anything and directly removed the summoning technique and sent the one-eyed viper, who had swallowed the scroll, away. There is another purpose for sharing the artificial tailed beast data with Orochimaru. That is, Hyojin wants to use this matter to subtly inform Orochimaru that he is already a Jinchuriki of Ryumyaku. After that, the relationship between the two is no longer a superior and subordinate, but an equal cooperative relationship. After sending away the one-eyed viper, Hyojin sat cross-legged in the room again and thought about the matter of an assistant. His ideas are very complicated, so he needs a capable and loyal experimental assistant, just like Satu, who has been standing behind Orochimaru all this time. But there are only a few geniuses in the entire shinobi world who are as talented as Do. After all, Satu is one of the few people who can master immortal arts by his own ability. In this regard, his talent even surpasses Orochi Maru and Jiraiya. Thinking of an assistant, Hyojin considered the problem of funds. Funds are also a big problem. When he thought of his empty wallet, he couldn't help but worry. Knock knock knock. At this time, there was a knock on the door outside the courtyard. Hyojin opened his Byakugan, and looked at the door, and found that it was his fiancée Kuroto waiting outside the door with a bamboo basket. Welcoming Kuroto in, Hyojin smiled and said, "It seems that today is a good day." Kuroto smiled, and put the dishes in the basket on the table one by one, and curiously said, "What kind of ninjutsu have you been studying in the house these days?" "Hey, that's a secret." With a perfunctory sentence, Hyojin tasted Kuroto's dishes. It has to be said that in terms of cooking, Kuroto is indeed very talented. The taste is not worse than the food in the village. Kuroto rested her chin on her hands. She looked sweetly at Hyojin eating the dishes she cooked and said, "Richa-sama asked me to thank you, Uncle Chuendo successfully promoted to a jonin." Hyojin waved his hand indifferently. "I didn't help much." Kuroto Chuendo is the Hyuga that Richa asked Hyojin to get votes to promote to a jonin, but Hyojin actually didn't get many votes. At most he got a few votes from his colleagues in class 11, so Kuroto Chuendo's promotion has little to do with him. It should be Richa's help. The sun was setting and the sky was getting dark. After eating, Hyojin and Kuroto leaned together and chatted. Such a warm and leisurely time. Hyojin hasn't enjoyed it for a long time. Tap! Suddenly there was a soft sound on the roof. Judging from the sound, it should be the footsteps of a ninja in the village, who flew over the roof of Hyojin's house. Kuroto frowned slightly and said, "How rude!" Hyojin's eyes were cold and he stood up. Under normal circumstances, the ninjas in the village would not casually pass through the roofs of other people's houses, often only when performing urgent tasks. Walking to the balcony, he looked out. Chapter 112. They're making their move so soon, Hyojin joked in his heart, and the corner of his mouth slightly raised. If there has been a riot in the village recently, it proves that his guess is correct. Uchiha Shinichi, a guy who did not leave any deeds in the original time and space, has really awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan in this time and space. But what Hyojin did not expect was that Uchiha Shinichi would act so quickly. After all, whether it is the ability to master the Manjikyu Sharingan or the intelligence gathering before taking action, these all take time. In just a few days, Hyojin does not believe that Uchiha Shinichi can prepare everything. So, either Uchiha Shinichi is acting recklessly, or Obsidian is supporting him from behind. Belle, who was in the house, also noticed something was wrong at this moment. She hurriedly walked to the balcony and whispered to Hyojin, "Kuroto, what happened?" While caressing Yui's beautiful hair, Kuroto gently comforted her. "The village is heavily guarded, and there is even a Sandame-sama in charge. What could possibly happen? Don't worry about it." But, looking at the night, there were still some ninjas gathering in the direction of the Naruto building. Belle was very uneasy. For someone who had experienced the Third Shinobi World War and the Nine Tails Rebellion, she would instinctively feel fear and uneasiness when there is even a little movement in the village. Maybe there is some urgent task. After casually making up a sentence, Hyojin pretended to smile casually and said, "Be good, you go back to the clan land first. There should be no danger with the patriarch here. I will go and inquire about the situation, and then meet you in the clan land." Belle quickly said, "Let's go to the clan land together." Hyojin explained, "Although I have been suspended, I am still directly under the umbu of Naruto. If something really happened in the village, I should go and have a look." Ling also knew that Hyojin was a member of the Black Ops, so she could only nod. Shadow Clone Technique. After sending Belle away, Hyojin immediately used the Shadow Clone Technique and left a Shadow Clone in the house. Then, he put on a black cloak and an ordinary black mask. Then, he chewed on a snake grass fruit. The fruit of the snake mark grass didn't have any shocking abilities. Its only effect was to change a person's scent, rendering any method of tracking scent ineffective. Hyojin would make mistakes, but he would not make the same mistake repeatedly. Previously, because of his scent, he was ambushed by Rock Village's beheading unit in the country of Bear, so since then, he has been concealing his scent every time he acts. After everything was ready, his figure disappeared into the night. Hyojin's first target is the Naruto building. Only by going there first can he speculate what happened and to what extent things have developed. With the convenience of the Byakugan, Hyojin quietly sneaked into a house not far from the Naruto building. After knocking out the owner of the house, he looked at the Naruto building from the windowsill. At this time, the Naruto building was brightly lit. In the square in front of the building, dozens of ninjas gathered, and from time to time, new ninjas arrived. Moving his gaze from the square to the Naruto building, Hyojin quickly discovered that at least 10 teams of Umbu have gathered in the Naruto building. Rubbing his chin, Hyojin secretly thought the Naruto building was not attacked, so the target chosen by Uchiha Shinichi for revenge should be the root. 3 generations gathered a large number of ninjas, but did not mobilize civilians to take refuge. From this point alone, it can be judged that the Uchiha clan should not have participated in the rebellion, and these ninjas gathered by 3 generations should be there to monitor and guard against the Uchiha clan. Otherwise, a single Uchiha Shinichi would not be enough for the entire village to be on guard against the enemy. After understanding this, Hyojin's figure flashed and rushed toward the root base. The root base is located in the corner of the village. When Hyojin arrived, he found that the 2 guards guarding the entrance of the base have fallen in a pool of blood. His goal is really here. Secretly said, Hyojin's figure flashed and directly sneaked into the root base. The base was silent, but the smell of blood in the air told Hyojin that a very tragic and bloody battle took place here not long ago. Along the underground passage, Hyojin step by step went deep into the root base. Along the way, he found 7 or 8 dead bodies of the root ninjas. All of these bodies were killed with a single cut to the throat. There was not even an extra expression on their faces. There is no doubt that when these root ninjas were killed, they were either under a genjutsu, or the enemy was so fast that they didn't have time to react. That guy's strength improved so much? The tragic death of these root ninjas made Hyojin secretly raise his vigilance. The improvement of Uchiha Shinichi's strength has somewhat exceeded his expectations. After turning a few corners, Hyojin's eyes suddenly opened up. He quickly retreated to the corner, because he found that a few dozen meters in front of him, there are 4 fully armed root ninjas stationed on guard. At this time, there is still a team of people guarding here, then this place is most likely the secret vault of the root. While thinking, Hyojin put his hand into his ninja bag. This time he sneaked into the root base. He wanted to take advantage of Uchiha Shinichi's heaven-sent opportunity to loot Danzo's collection. After all, whether it is the root's forbidden technique scrolls or the results of Danzo's human experiments, they are all things that he urgently needs. Making up his mind, Hyojin immediately rushed out. With his current strength, even if he doesn't enter the Tenseigan chakra mode, killing 4 root ninjas won't be a problem. Who is it? Enemy attack. As soon as Hyojin revealed himself, the root ninjas exclaimed, but the object of their exclamation was not Hyojin who rushed towards them, but the masked man who suddenly appeared out of thin air. In an instant, 2 root ninjas died in the hands of Hyojin, while the other 2 were thrown into the vortex by the masked man. In just a short moment, 4 root ninjas were inexplicably killed by Hyojin and the masked man. After dealing with all the root ninjas, the 2 guys wearing masks and black cloaks confronted each other from a distance. For a time, the atmosphere was a bit awkward. Encountering the obsidian here made Hyojin very depressed. The masked obsidian also didn't expect that someone would jump out to disturb the situation, not to mention a guy wearing a black cloak and a mask like himself. Chapter 113. Carrying his younger brother on his back, Itachi looked a little dazed. In the night, the Uchiha clan is very noisy, the crying of children, the quarreling of adults, and the various clansmen around him are in a hurry. Everything seems to indicate that something bad is about to happen. Before he even got close to his house, Itachi was surprised to find that his house was surrounded by fully armed clansmen. At this time, the faces of these clansmen are full of excitement and fanaticism. Looking at these clansmen, Itachi uneasily put down his younger brother Sasuke on his back, and then took Sasuke's little hand, who is only a little more than 1 year old, and went around to the side door of the house. Entering the house, he found that the courtyard is also full of clansmen. It's just that the clansmen gathered in the courtyard are all jonin and special jonin of the clan. There is no sign of chunin or genin. Why are the elites of the clan gathered in my house? Realizing that almost all the elites of the Uchiha clan have gathered in his house, Itachi's heart became more and more uneasy. He vaguely guessed that something must have happened. At this time, in the direction of the lobby, there is a faint sound of quarreling. Itachi quickly stopped and listened attentively. In the lobby, Jishui, who is surrounded by a group of clansmen, said with a decisive expression, "You are crazy, I will never allow you to do this." An elite jonin of the Uchiha clan was furious. "Jishui, are you going to betray the clan? Don't forget your identity, you are also called Uchiha. Because I am an Uchiha, I can't let you destroy the Uchiha clan." After a pause, Jishui looked at Patriarch Fuyue, who is sitting cross-legged, and said sincerely, "Patriarch, have you considered the consequences of starting a rebellion? Once the village falls into internal strife, Cloud and Rock Village will take advantage of the situation. Even if we are lucky enough to obtain Naruto's position, what can we use to resist Cloud and Rock Village?" Not waiting for Patriarch Fuyue to answer, another elite jonin of the Uchiha clan coldly snorted, "As long as our Uchiha clan is here, there is nothing to be afraid of." Immediately, the other Uchiha jonin agreed, "Yes, as long as we can control the village, Cloud and Rock Village will not be a threat at all." At this time, Fuyue raised his hand to stop the crowd, and then said to Jishui, "Shinichi has rebelled, we have no choice." Jishui shook her head. "No, we have a choice." Fuyue stared at Jishui, waiting for his explanation. Taking a deep breath, Jishui said, "Shinichi's actions are only his personal revenge, it has nothing to do with the Uchiha clan. Moreover, he didn't inform the clan before taking action, which shows that he has no intention of using the power of the clan, nor does he want to involve the clan in this matter." On the side, Uchiha Jonin said, "But Shinichi has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. He is a precious combat power of the Uchiha clan. Are we just going to watch him die in the hands of the village?" Before Shinichi took action, he knocked down a Uchiha Jonin who was responsible for monitoring him, and revealed his Manjikyu Sharingan, so now the top leaders of the Uchiha clan already know that Shinichi has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. This is also one of the reasons why they are clamoring for a coup, because they are convinced that the Manjikyu Sharingan is invincible. Jishui bowed to the crowd, "Please believe me, I will bring Shinichi back with my own hands, and then I will persuade Naruto-sama to spare Shinichi's life. Right now, Mai is facing both internal and external troubles, so Jishui believes that as long as he can bring Shinichi back, in order to preserve an important combat power for the village, the 3 generations will likely spare Shinichi's life. After all, the threat of Cloud Village has not been resolved, and a war may break out at any time." Fuyue glanced at Jishui and shook his head. "You may not be his opponent now." Fuyue knows the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan, because he himself has this kind of cursed eye, so in his opinion, even if Jishui is the #1 genius of the Uchiha clan, without awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan, He may not be the opponent of Shinichi, who has awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan. Knowing that he can't hide it anymore, Jishui has no choice but to activate his Manjikyu Sharingan, and then bowed to the crowd again. Please believe me this time, I will definitely bring Shinichi back safely. At this moment, Jishui has made up his mind to use Kodo Amatsukami. Jishui, you? Looking at Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan, all the Uchiha clan members present were shocked. Even Patriarch Fuyue was no exception. With 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan, Uchiha Sharingan, it may not be impossible for him to see the position of Naruto. And at this moment, such a thought suddenly appeared in Fuyue's mind. Root base. Staring at Obsidian opposite of him, Hyojin thought about countermeasures in his heart. Obsidian's strength has been reflected vividly on the night of the Nine Tails Rebellion. He could instantly kill the Umbu squad arranged by Hokage-sama, he could control the Kyuubi with just a glance, and when he fought with Hokage-sama, after taking a full blow from Hokage-sama's Rasengan, not only did he not die, but his injuries didn't seem too serious. Without Kakashi's Manjikyu Sharingan, it's too difficult to kill him. Without any complicated analysis, Hyojin came to a conclusion: with his current strength, it's not difficult to defeat Obsidian, but it's very difficult to kill Obsidian. After all, as long as Obsidian wants to escape, Hyojin has no means to interfere with the Kamui space. This is also the reason why Obsidian directly came from the Kamui space, and Hyojin didn't notice it, because Obsidian's Kamui space is a different space parallel to the Shinobi world, and his Byakugan doesn't have the ability to see through the parallel space. At this point, even 4 generations Genjutsu, who is proficient in space-time ninjutsu, sealing techniques, and various forbidden techniques, can only watch Obsidian leave, and there is no other way. Clatter. At this time, Obsidian took out a string of chains. He leisurely fixed the 2 ends of the chain on his 2 wrists, and his behavior was very calm. It seems that he doesn't put Hyojin in his eyes. Perhaps in his eyes, except for a few famous masters in the village, other people are not worthy of being taken too seriously. Looking at this familiar scene, Hyojin was a little emotional at this moment. He wanted to know what Obsidian's mentality was when facing 4 generations Genjutsu. Swish! In an instant, the 2 of them attacked at the same time, their figures turned into afterimages, and rushed at each other at an extremely fast speed. The iron chains fluttered in the air, and made clanking noises. The cold light that reflected the candlelight was also flickering in the quiet underground. From the beginning to the end, the 2 people who were brimming with murderous intent remained silent. Chapter 114. The 2 sides crossed each other, and Hyojin's figure directly penetrated the Obsidian's body. However, he had expected it and ducked to avoid the chain hanging on Obsidian. After crossing each other, the 2 sides fell into each other's previous position and confronted each other again. Hey, white-eyed guy, my name is Uchiha Obsidian, what's your name? Hyojin. Let me tell you, I'm going to be Naruto's man in the future. Oh, speaking of which, it's all thanks to you. Huh, what's all thanks to me? Thanks to you being the last in the exam this time, I'm not at the bottom of the ranking. You're too hateful. When I open my eyes one day, I'll let you know the power of the Uchiha clan. At this moment, Hyojin's mind flashed with the Obsidian in the ninja school. At that time, they were brothers who wandered at the bottom of the report list, but now they were powerful ninjas who could control the village. The changes in the world were really amazing. Clatter, failing to land his first strike, the slightly surprised Bao-Tu began to shake the chains, testing the waters, preparing to launch a second round of attacks. However, Hyojin threw away the kunai in his hand and put his hands into the storage bag around his waist. The silence continued, and neither of them planned to speak, nor did they need to. Swish! With a wave of his right hand, the Obsidian threw the chain at Hyojin, and then his whole body rushed forward. Hyojin, with his hands in the ninja bag, jumped back quickly, trying to avoid the obsidian's attack. However, as soon as he avoided the swing of the chain, he was grabbed by the obsidian's shoulder. In an instant, a twisted vortex appeared on Hyojin's shoulder, and his hands that were in the ninja bag were pressed on the obsidian's chest. Glancing at the detonation talisman that Hyojin stuck on his chest, the obsidian, who was under the mask, had a look of disdain on his face as he thought to himself, "Got it." In his opinion, as long as he touched Hyojin, Hyojin would definitely die. As for the detonation talisman on his chest, he had countless ways to deal with it, so he didn't need to worry too much about it. The twisting vortex grew larger and larger. Soon, Hyojin's body became distorted. Other than the 4 generations, no one can hide from my divine might. The corners of Obsidian's mouth curled up, and a smile spread across his face. Suddenly, Obsidian, together with the iron chain, was repelled and flew out. Because the process was too sudden, he did not have the time to turn invisible and hide in his own godly might space. In the process of being repelled, the detonation talismans that Hyojin placed on Obsidian's chest also exploded. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions reverberated underground. Humph! Staring at Hyojin, who was opposite of him, Obsidian spat. Although the smoke of the explosion has not yet dissipated, he already knew the result. Obsidian hid in the godly might space before the detonation talisman exploded. After the smoke dissipated, the twisting vortex appeared out of thin air again, and Obsidian walked out of the vortex, but this time, he was not as calm as before. Looking at Hyojin, Obsidian finally spoke. "Who are you? Why are you here?" For Obsidian, who has seen the Rinnegan, he can naturally feel that the trick that Hyojin used just now is very similar to the Shinra Tensei of Pain. And in the current shinobi world, as far as he knows, only Pain can use this trick. Therefore, he is very interested in the identity of Hyojin, who is also wearing a mask and a black cloak, because he is convinced that the person in front of him is not Pain Tensei. Listening to Obsidian's deep voice, Hyojin also asked in a hoarse voice, "Who are you? Why are you here?" Obsidian's godly might is indeed impossible to guard against, but that is only for ordinary ninjas. For Hyojin, who has rain pull, it is not a problem, because if Obsidian wants to attack, he must materialize, and once he materializes, he can be controlled by rain pull. Therefore, even if Hyojin has half of his body twisted by Obsidian, as long as Hyojin is conscious, he can instantly get rid of Obsidian's godly might attack. After a moment of silence, Obsidian pointed to the root vault next to him and said, "If your goal is here, then there is no need for us to fight." Hyojin also glanced at the root vault and immediately nodded. He has already noticed that Obsidian has a Sharingan in his left eye socket, which means that even if he enters the Tenseigan chakra mode and uses the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion to launch a surprise attack and luckily succeeds, Obsidian can use Izanagi at the cost of 1 Sharingan to avoid death, and then quickly escape into the godly might space. In other words, without the assistance of Kakashi, this battle will not have any result. Since he knows that there is no result, Hyojin naturally won't leak too much information about himself, otherwise, it will be easy for Obsidian to target him. After all, there are many experts in the Akatsuki organization, and there is also Black Zetsu, a ghost that has been wandering in the shinobi world for thousands of years. If he is plotted against by them, even the current Hyojin will not feel good. The two sides looked at each other and reached an agreement. Both of them know that instead of delaying like this, it is better to take advantage of the fact that the root base has just been raided by Uchiha and Shinichi to plunder the root vault. Walking to the door of the secret vault, Obsidian confirmed the seal on the secret vault, then glanced at Hyojin and chuckled as he passed through the wall and entered the secret vault. There is no doubt that the reason why Obsidian didn't descend into the secret vault from the beginning is because he was worried about the seal on the secret vault, and after confirming that the seal on the secret vault is not a threat to him, he didn't say anything to Hyojin and sneaked into the secret vault. "What are you showing off for?" Hyojin cursed in his heart. Then he slowly walked to the door of the secret vault, pressed his hand on it, and said in a low voice, "Open!" Dong, accompanied by a soft sound, the door of the secret vault opened. The seal on the root vault happens to be the 4-symbol seal that Hyojin is most proficient in. Obsidian, who just stepped into the secret vault, saw that Hyojin instantly undid the seal and followed him in. The look of fear on his face became even heavier. At this time, Hyojin, who just entered the secret vault, looked at the secret vault. In the rows of glass refrigerators, there are a variety of materials on display, including many unknown reagents, as well as many petri dishes containing cell tissues. Not only that, Suijin also saw containers containing Sharingan, and counting them, there were a total of 9 Sharingan in total. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.